And mute your shit if you haven't.
Special operations. Covert ops. Espionage. The Team House.
Yeah, there was an issue. We can't hear.
With your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 91 of the Team House. We're live tonight and Friday, enjoying the spring, knocking back a couple Peronis. I'm Jack Murphy. This is Dave Park, co-host on the show. Tonight, our guest is Mike Perry. He enlisted in the Army, then went officer, turned to the dark side, was in Special Forces, retired as a major, deployed all across Asia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And we're very excited to have him on the show tonight. Welcome, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm really excited to be here. Like I said, this was yours was the first podcast I ever watched. So
awesome, man! Thank you. We really appreciate that. You know, and it never ceases to amaze me the people who watch this show. It ranges from people who are interested, thinking about pursuing a military career or some sort of federal service, and then also people who are in federal service currently. And I think maybe they're a little worried about what Dave and I and our guests are going to say on the show. So it's a bit of a mix. But the first thing that we always ask our guests, Mike, is for their origin story. We want to know a little bit about your upbringing, who you are, and what kind of got you onto that path that led you to the Army.
Okay. Yeah, no worries, man. So I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan. My folks were, very blue collar. My dad grew up on a dairy farm in Idaho. His dad actually used to go hunting with Elmer Keith, for all you gun people out there. So dairy farm, and then his family moved to Kansas. My mom grew up on a ranch, so like I'm the product of I'm two generations off the ranch and farm. Both my parents grew up in places that didn't have indoor plumbing. Both got college degrees. At some point in my family history, I got a dude who used to be a mule team handler out in Bannock, Montana, back when that was a gold rush community, and used to haul borax on those 40 mule borax teams or whatever. So, cowboys and farmers, man. So I got a little bit of best of both worlds growing up. I got to grow up in Ann Arbor, Berkeley of the Rust Belt, but I got to spend summers in Wyoming, and there was lots of guns and horses and all of that. So I grew up in Ann Arbor. I guess I'll kick off around 15, because 15 was kind of a big year for me. 15, I got my first concussion. That was interesting. I intervened in a mugging. I saw a dude getting jumped by about 12 dudes outside of I think it was like a Kresge's or something, but they were beating this guy's ass over some beer, literally. And I ran up there with a bunch of my friends, and as I found out later, me and one other guy ran into that fray, and everybody else kind of stopped on the periphery and was like, "Hey man, why are you guys being so messed up?" So that was a good life lesson too. Is most people are definitely not about to wade into the fray, and unfortunately, but me and the other guy did. I wound up getting a bottle broke over my head. I woke up with a cop literally shining a mini mag in my eyes, lying in the street in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with busted glass around my head, and he's asking me my name, and I had no fucking idea what it was. So, I used to think about that later in life, had that not come back to me, and I just had to go through my wallet, I guess, and figure out who the fuck I was. But luckily I did retain, I regained my memory. So yeah, that was my first concussion. That same year, I used to get in a lot of fistfights as a kid. I look at 15 as kind of like my graduation to big boy violence, because I had the mugging thing, and then I threw a piece of cinder block at a frat boy's head that year outside of a fucking Circle Jerks concert, because a bunch of frat boys hurt a girl pretty bad in the mosh pit, and we swarmed them and got them outside, and it was good. It was very liberating. It felt good, man. But anyway, so 15, I'm getting a little more aggressive. I got some fallings out with my old man. He told me basically get my shit together or hit the road. I'd been expelled at that point. That was part of the friction point. Was I got thrown out of school. I'd been thrown out of school a bunch of times, and they finally expelled me at 15. He told me, get my shit together, get out. So I got out. That was my solution. And a couple of friends of mine hooked me up for a place for the night at a co-op. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but, it's a college town. So you got all these co-ops where, you got like a dozen, 14, 16 college kids all living in a house. And,
it's like a hippie squat,
floor and communal kitchen and all that stuff. So... they know a guy who'll put me up in the co-op for a night. So, I go spend a night at the co-op, and the dude whose room they found for me to sleep on the floor was the guy from the mugging. So, small world, man, right? So anyway, he talks to the people of the co-op, and they let me rent a storage room. For $110 a month, I get the room where they like normally keep the crates of toilet paper and the box springs and all that shit. So I'm 15, I'm living in a storage room in a co-op, and I'm washing dishes. I'm washing dishes at like a seafood place, and I go home and cats are following me and shit. I'm covered in fish bits and all that, but I'm living the life. I'm like 15. I got my own place. I got some spending money, and the co-op. They let me work off my rent at $5 an hour. You could work at like the co-op grocery store, print flyers or T-shirts or what the fuck ever. So I was doing that, basically you get room and board for $180, and the board was like the food from the co-op groceries. So you got like peanut butter and milk and cornflakes, like all you can fucking eat, cornflakes, peanut butter and milk. And, then I'm working at a restaurant. So I went from the seafood place to a German restaurant. I'm eating prime rib all the time because people would send it back when it was overdone. Anyway, so I'm living in this co-op. I'm kind of living the dream for a 15-year-old. One night, a couple of friends of mine come over, these older dudes I hung out with, and they used to make movies that you'd show behind bands at concerts if you've ever gone to see somebody. Yeah, so we're making this movie called Scrambo. And we had this terrain model. We had this whole thing, like, we had a mural on the wall, and then we had like one of those old G.I. Joe dolls, like the big ones.
Yeah.
We were doing like stop motion animation, and here comes G.I. Joe, and he's tromping through this like, Vietnamese looking village, and there were special effects and stuff's catching on fire. Anyway, the whole fucking thing caught on fire. It all catches on fire, and like for a minute I thought I was gonna burn this whole fucking co-op down, man. So we got the fire out, but all the smoke alarms went off, and they were like, "Look, man, tomorrow you need to get your shit and get out of here. Like, totally unacceptable." So in the morning I'm I got like this cardboard box. I got like everything I fucking own in the world in this cardboard box, and I'm like looking at it, and my friend shows up, my friend Jim, and goes, "Hey man, the cops are looking for me. Like, can I hang out here for a couple of days?" And I'm like, "I just got evicted, man." So we went and lived out by the Huron River. We went and lived in this fucking teepee that these I won't call them hippies. I think that's probably unfair to them, but they were like the drum circle people. They'd get together. Yeah. They'd get together every month and like make fires with bow saws and shit like that, and cool. And they were okay with us living in the teepee. It's like we got these fucking teenage hooligans like living by the river, And one of them bought me a copy of Lord of the Rings once and told me he thought it was cool that I was like out there living by my wits. But we'd go into town every week. We'd go in on like a early break of dawn, when the French and Indians attacked. We'd go in fucking Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and we'd hit a frat house. And we'd wheel up a grocery cart, and we'd go in when everyone was like still fucked up from the night before, and we'd like load the grocery cart with food out of the freezer and the fridge, and like with booze and cigarettes and anything we could find. Then we'd like go out, by the river. And I can remember sitting around one day like smoking like some Dunhills, like smoking some foreign cigarettes and drinking some fucking fancy scotch, and just thinking, this is pretty good, And Anyway, when it got cold, we went back into town and we went and lived in a squat house with like a half a dozen heroin addicts, you know. And we lived in this squat house for a while, which was an education in and of itself, man. Like if you want a glimpse of life, go live in a squat house with a bunch of heroin addicts.
How did you find the squat house with the heroin addicts? How did you? I mean, did you just walk down the street and go, "Oh, they're heroin addicts. Let's follow them"?
No, I think we just found the squat house when we were looking around. You know, it was like, again, we're pretty much in tune with things that are going on in town. So it's one of those, like, just like when I was looking for a place to stay before, it took me a couple hours to find a place to stay. And so, you know, people know where the squat houses are. You've got, you know, everybody there's transient, man. Nobody's like staying there long term, but you know, so it's like, hey, yeah, there's a squat house, and it was, I think it was about a block and a half from where I used to live in the co-op too. So it was real easy. So we stayed in this squat house for a while, and then one night we were on the porch and we were all wasted. And Jim, my friend Jim, he gets this like, I don't know, he gets this like 80-pound fishing line or something, and he makes this fucking elaborate spider web all across the porch, you know, these two wooden columns, and he makes this big spider web. He spends hours on this spider web. And one thing led to another, and we're out on the porch getting wasted, and we had a fire. We had a fire on the porch because, you know, my youth is apparently filled with fires where I shouldn't have any. So we got a fire, and the cops came. First cop runs up on that fucking porch, man, full sprint. And he hits that spider web. He hits this fishing line spider web. And you could almost hear the cartoon like boing, and it bounces them back into the second cop, and they're both on their ass, and me and Jim are fucking laughing. We're laughing like fucking maniacs, man. You know, like bent over fucking laughing, and then it was like, shit, we gotta get out of here, you know. So we run out the back, and we run down like some alleys, and we go back to the co-op where I used to live, and I fucking run up a fire escape, and we go through like the second story window and say, hey man, like the cops are looking for us, can we stay here tonight? And they were like, yeah, that's fine. And then we went back a couple hours later to the co-op, and they were like taking all the heroin addicts and putting them in a police van, which, you know, I was like, well, that's, you know, my bad. So we went back to the co-op, and in the morning they were like, hey man, it's cool, you can come stay here again, you know, like come on back, all is forgiven, just don't start any more fucking fires. And so that was cool. So I went back to the co-op, and I lived there for a while longer, and you know, it's about now I'm like 17, and a Marine recruiter calls me one day. Well, I'm gonna back up a little bit. So this is like the first heroin epidemic I can remember in Michigan. You know, so this is about 1987, and you know, I hang out with musicians and shit like that. I was going to punk rock shows. I was going to all ages shows at like 13. I saw Black Flag in 1983. I saw Black Flag in 1984. I saw like the Butthole Surfers in Detroit. I saw all kinds of bands. You could see 3 bands for $3 on a fucking Wednesday in Detroit at that point in history. The punk scene was booming, and it was awesome, and Ann Arbor was full of all ages shows, and that stuff was cool and all, but like heroin went through that community. Okay, so you know, I got this week where like an old girlfriend comes to see me, and you know, there's a woman that went by the name Tarantula, you know, and Tarantula comes to see me, and she's gonna say goodbye because she's going to Ohio. She's going to Kent, Ohio, with this like heroin addict boyfriend she had, you know, that was like her boyfriend after me, and so she's going to Kent, Ohio to have this heroin addict's boyfriend. Or heroin addict's baby, excuse me. You know, she's going to Kent with her heroin addict boyfriend to have his baby. And
the tarantula
like, okay,
baby.
That's, you know, sure. That's
Good
a
start.
plan, you know.
Good start for the kid.
And, you know, so I'm like, you know, that's kind of a kick in the dick. But then, you know, like later that week, my friend shows up, Jim, and we used to have big mohawks and shit, you know. Jim shows up, and he's looking very conservative. He's very well groomed, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And he says, well, you know, I got this new gig. I'm like driving heroin down to fucking Miami and bringing coke back, and I gotta look, you know, conservative so I don't get, you know, fucked with. And I'm like, yep, all right. Anyway, so that same week, the Marine recruiter calls me and is like, would you be interested in joining the Marines? And I was like, yeah, I'll join the Marines like fucking now, man. I'll join the Marines like right fucking now. I said, I will join the French Foreign Legion right now. Just get me the fuck out of here, okay? And he's like, hey, I like your attitude. You're really gung-ho young man, you know? So, you know, anyway, it didn't work out with the Marines because this is 1987. Fiscal year 88, all the services went to no non-grads. That was like the deal. The Air Force and the Marines started a quarter earlier than the Army and the Navy, so they got a jump on it a quarter early. So the Marines were real interested until they figured out that, like, oh, dude, you didn't graduate fucking high school, man, like, you know, and basically told me that was indicative of being an underachiever, which, you know, thanks, Uncle Sam's misguided children. I'm, you know, yes, guilty. Not living up to potential, apparently. So the Marines called me and then said no, and then the Navy called me and I was like, fuck no. And then the Army called me and I was like, sure, I'll join the Army. Like, I was already in that, you know, I was in that mood by then. I was like, I'm leaving Ann Arbor. I'm going to go do something else. I'm getting the fuck out of here. You know, my friends are getting into the heroin scene, and I don't want to be around for it. It's fucking.
Had you ever thought about the military up until that point? Like, as a younger child, had, you know, you watched the A-Team and decided that's what you wanted to do, or anything like that, or was this kind of the recruiter called you like, hey, that sounds like a good idea?
So pre-punk rock days, when I was 13, 14, I was a military explorer scout. Like, I was going to the National Guard Armory or going to Camp Grayling, and we were disassembling M16s and we were donning MOP 4 to standard. Like, when I was 13 years old, I could fucking put on MOP 4, 9 seconds, and then, you know, get the hood on. I could take an M16A1 apart. I could put it together. I was doing all that. This is Reagan era, Red Dawn era shit, man. I was, you know. So at that point in my life, like all my clothing purchases came from the Army surplus store. I was wearing all the Army surplus shit. My first day as a dishwasher, I ruined my nice jump boots. They got so fucking waterlogged and grease stained that they never took a shine again. But, you know, so. Yeah, I mean, mid-'80s, the military looked very cool, but, you know, like I kind of lost interest in it, and then all of a sudden it was like they're ringing my phone. So at that point in my life, I don't think I was really looking, you know, at the military as a career, but, you know, I was familiar with the military in general. My dad had been in the infantry, and, you know, like I said, man, just about, I think every male member of my family did military service. A couple of career people, but most guys did a tour and left. You know, that was pretty normal. So, you know, like I said, man, I figured it was a good way to get out of town. But you know, that's mostly what it was to me at that point in my life. It was a ticket out. So I go in the Army, you know, they give me Cav Scout because I'm a fucking non-grad. You know, I did pretty well on my ASVAB, and I was like, do I got any other options? And the guy's like, this is what the recruiter told me. No shit. He goes, yeah, I'll give you an option. You can take it or fucking leave it. You know, he's like, you can wait a couple of weeks and you'll never come in the military in your life because you know, like the door's closing, bro, you know. So if you want to come in the Army, you can be a Cav Scout for 4 years. There's no bonus, there's no college money. Like, it's up to you. But you know, you got a couple of weeks to think about it, and then you can go fuck yourself. So I was like, okay, you know.
Did you have a GED at this point in time, or you had nothing?
They made me get a GED. Okay. They made me get a GED because I failed something, if I remember correctly, it was called the California Maturity Test, and I failed it, and they were like, you gotta take it if you're 17, and because I failed it, they made me go get a GED, and I got the highest GED in Michigan that year. I was like a lady fucking came out to visit me to like give me my little fucking thing saying, you did the best out of all the fucking high school dropouts in the state. You are by far the smartest one. So I got that. I had to get that to go in the Army, and And I had to get my dad signed for me for the recruiter, and we made up. Me and my dad made up. That was like the first time I'd seen him in a couple of years, and we totally made up. And he thought that was cool. I was going to the Army. I was like going to go do something with myself. So I joined the Army as a Cav Scout. My first experience with the Army is I went to a holding company at Fort Knox because I had a warrant out for my imprisonment from Canada.
From Canada? Did you say from Canada?
From Canada, because apparently if you skip a court date in Canada, they'll just try in you in absentia and convict you. So like I had like some disturbing the peace charge or something from Canada. Oh, which by the way, so the cops in Canada put me and my friend in a fucking car and drove us in the middle of nowhere. They drove us way the fuck out in the middle of nowhere and dropped us off. And we had to walk all day back to town to find a payphone to like get a ride to get the fuck out of Canada. So I go in the Army. I've got a warrant out for my imprisonment. Because my response at the time was like, well, I guess I'll never visit Canada again. But now it's like, yeah, I got a warrant out for my imprisonment from Canada, and I got to clear it up before I can go to OSIT. So I'm in this holding company, and it's awful. It's the worst, man. So 90% of the people in this company are there because they're getting thrown out of the Army. They went to their initial training, and they failed to adapt to the military, or however they phrase it, and they're on their way out. And a lot of these people self-harmed. So you got dudes who like deliberately shattered their kneecaps in the shower and shit like that. Like, this is who I'm hanging out with all day. We're scraping asbestos off of old barracks and like planting trees at Fort Knox. And the drill sergeants are guys who got thrown off the trail typically for abusing trainees. Yeah. So it's this like just kind of like cesspool, right? Pit of despair where you got like predatory fucking people, and you got self-harmers, and you got abusive drill sergeants, and it's like, Jesus Christ, just get me the fuck out of here, man. Like said lawyers, guns, and money. So anyway, finally that gets cleared up. Like, there's no more fucking warrant. Canada gave me the fucking the Hamas Damas, and the Army let me go to OSIT. I go to OSIT, and the guy who picks me up from this holding company is this E4 who used to be like an E7, and he got busted with a couple of the other drill sergeants for, I shit you not, pimping out the supply sergeant to trainees. Okay, so you had this female supply sergeant, and you had like 3 drill sergeants that were all like E4s at this time. But they were still there. They're still in the Army. They're still working there, Wow. And the E4 picks me up. He's like the battalion sergeant major's driver. So I'm like kind of looking around. This is my intro to the Army. I went from what we called Alcatraz, because it was the Alpha Company. We went from Alcatraz, the holding company, to like OSIT, where I got like the big pimpin' fucking drill sergeants, man. And I'm, this is my intro to the Army. I'm looking around going, what the fuck have I gotten myself into? But OSIT was.
Real quick, just for our viewers and listeners who aren't familiar with it, OSIT is one station unit training. So you're talking about starting basic training, and for this process, for certain jobs like infantry, you basically do your boot camp and then do your follow-on infantry training with the same people, and it's all part of the same thing. So when he's referring to OSIT, that's what he's talking about. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries, man. I should throw acronym explanations out, but the way I perceived OSIT, I think the way all of us did, was we all got ripped off on AIT. OSIT is basically like, hey man, you're going to basic training for 4 months, motherfucker. Right. Yeah, that's all that is. The last month we'll let you drink soda in the mess hall.
Yeah, right, because for other jobs, you do your boot camp, and then it was an actual change when you would go to your AIT or your advanced technical training or whatever it is, but your job training. For infantry, you keep the same drill sergeants too, right? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. It's the same dudes, man.
Yeah, you might get weekends off or something, but You don't get. But
we got Family Day, dude. We got Family Day. We got Family Day, and I'm going to tell you about this guy, Liberty.
Family Day, and you would like it.
Liberty got a fucking DUI on Family Day. He was. And the drill sergeants are like, nobody's ever done that. We don't even know like how to fucking deal with this, you know. So Liberty got a DUI on Family Day. We wound up in the same unit together, and I'm going to tell you some Liberty stories down the road. But you know, while I'm on the subject, Liberty was the guy while we were in OSET. His parents moved and didn't give him a forwarding address. Okay. And he was all busted up about it. But like, the more I got to know the guy, the more I was like, yeah. I get it. That makes sense, you know. So, like I said, pretty uneventful. You know, I did all right in OSET. The one story I think I got from OSET that's funny, because everyone talks about like fighting drill sergeant. You know, I'd have joined the Army, but I'd have, you know, hit my drill sergeant or something. I actually did get to give a drill sergeant a bloody nose, and I was quite happy about that. It was probably the high point of OSET, and that was during combatives. And he tried to use me in a demonstration, and he was trying to throw me. He was trying to like hip throw me, and you know, it was one of those. You know, old Army combatives, which kind of sucked, you know, back in the day, where you had these terrible fucking combatives. But anyway, he wasn't doing it right, and I wasn't gonna like throw myself over the dude's hip, because you know, what the fuck is the point? And, like, it's a choreographed at that point. So he got really mad at me, and he said, "Oh, you want to resist, huh? Well, you just, you know, you go ahead and resist. You go ahead and resist." And I was like, okay, you know, I can resist. And I wrestled all through fucking junior high, dude, and I spent most of my youth like fist fighting as a hobby. So like I'm down with some violence, man, you know. So he tells me I can resist. So he goes to try to throw me, and I fucking pick that dude up and I slammed him down like face first into the fucking sawdust pit. And the other drill sergeants like stopped everything right then and there. The guy's all bloody. He's all bloody, man. And that whole fucking march home, marching back to the fucking barracks, dude, the other drill sergeants gave that guy so much fucking shit. They gave him so much shit. And I was like... So that was OSA. That was like as good as it got for me. So yeah, then I went to my unit. I went to K Troop 3rd Squadron, 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, Fort Bliss, Texas. This was, you know, the late 80s, Reagan's Army. Just like with the holding company and OSIT, like nothing about the Army was what I expected. So I get to my unit. You got some serious substance abuse issues. You got IV drug use going on. Like it's literally the only environment I've ever been in my life where people were shooting into tattoos. You know, where people had tattoos specifically for the purpose of covering up track marks.
Wow.
So when your sleeves up, people wouldn't notice them. Like that was a real thing. And I mean, in my unit, you know, you're talking about a troop, man. So, you know, just over 100 people, you probably had a dozen IV drug users easy. Wow. So you know, when I was a fucking private, you know, my E5 used to come into the barracks on weekends to shoot speedballs, you know, so his wife would nag him. And, you know, speedball, for anybody who missed the Belushi era, is a 50-50 mix of heroin and cocaine. It's what killed John Belushi. So, you know, it's like, hey, man, my sergeant's using my room to shoot drugs on the weekend, and, you know, this place just kind of sucks. And it's Fort Bliss. It's, you know, it's fucking...
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's terrible. It's El Paso. You know, I was spending all my time as a private getting drunk in Juarez, getting in fights down there, getting in fights with the Marines, getting in fights with the Air Force, getting in fights with the college students, getting in fights with the locals, just getting in fights in Juarez. You know, one night when I was 18, a guy insulted me in a fucking bar, and I beat his head against a metal stair rail. You know, like that was Juarez. That's, you know, like that was how I fucking spent my time, not being a particularly good human being, but, you know, it's the kind of thing you do when I don't know, you're in some shithole and you don't really have much going on.
Right.
Liberty's going to enter the equation again here. So me and Liberty, and Liberty was from Jersey, and another guy from Jersey, Joey, and a guy named Frank from New York, and that wasn't even his fucking real name. Frank had done time in Rikers Island and like come in the army under a fake name. I don't even know if you could do that anymore, but it's like the 80s. It's still like paper records, so
right.
Who fucking knows? Occasionally, for the fuck of it, Frank and Joey and Liberty and I would go out and we ripped off a couple of cocaine dealers a few times, probably, I don't know, half a dozen times. And it usually ended with somebody getting pepper sprayed in the face and holding their face as we drove away with like a 8-ball of cocaine and some money. So that was my fucking existence in Fort Bliss, Texas. That was my time as a private. Liberty got thrown out of the army for cocaine, and he tried that shit in Jersey about 2 weeks after he got out, and he got shot and killed. So,
oh wow,
we had a battle drill worked out. We had a fucking SOP, and you can't go do that shit with anybody.
Yeah.
But like I said, man, my introduction to the army was a little rocky, And
so
anyway, there was a point in my life where I'm looking around in the K-Troop 3rd Squadron, 3rd ACR, thinking this is the worst fucking mistake I ever made in my life. I did get my first award in the Army there. I shot Top Gun in Squadron Gunnery. That was like,
sure. That's awesome.
I'm pretty happy about that. That's like my favorite AAM. I've always been pretty decent around weaponry. I took a lot of pride in being a gunner. When I got there, I was a gunner on one of those old tow tracks where you got like the modified 113, and not like the fist vehicle or whatever those things are, but this is like, you've got like this like mount that you got to like pull out and do a squat, and then you're like pushing it up to the fucking ramp of the 113, and then everyone else buttons up, and you're like sitting on top of a 113 with a tow missile on your shoulder, It was like a very good Cold War job because you knew you were probably not going to live long enough in the Fulton Gap to have any anxiety about being there. So that was my original job in the Army, was tow gunner on a 113, and then we got the Bradleys, and I became a gunner on a Bradley and loved it. I liked that job. The Bradley's a piece of shit. I hate everything about that vehicle except the weapon system is pretty decent. The M242 Bushmaster cannon, if you take care of it. I've never seen that thing fail other than from operator error. So, I like stuff like that. I like things that go bang every time I pull a trigger. That's really all I asked for in a weapon system. So, I like being a Bradley gunner. When I was 19, they made me a corporal. I got my own Bradley. That was probably someone's bad idea, but like the Army did give me my own armored vehicle at one point, my own crew, and I was happy about that. Anyway, so at this point in time, like the Delta recruiter came by, I remember that, and like you got to see that Who video. You got to see people doing all kinds of
and
am I still here?
Yeah, we're right. You're breaking up just a little bit.
Getting choppy.
Yeah. Look, while your internet's settling out, we're gonna take a quick break for our sponsor.
Yeah, go for it.
So anyway, we have a sponsor for the show, and we want to tell you a little bit about it. So we have a lot of people from like MACV SAW, First Group, 7th Group, all these different places where these guys specialize in jungle warfare.
They're deep in the bush.
They're deep in the bush, right? And they're good at it. You know who shouldn't have to specialize in jungle warfare, though?
Who, Dave?
Your intimate partner. So this episode of the Team House is brought to you by Manscaped. So I've got some copy here that I need to read and let me put on my glasses. And for those of you who don't know, Manscaped is a great little grooming product. And I say great because I've used it.
You got it right down here, Dave.
We do. Not the one I use. So, for any of you guys who have ever tried to clean up your nether regions,
shave your balls,
you know that it can be a perilous job. It can, the normal razors or normal like clippers will nick you, and I think anybody who's ever tried this has been nicked. But Jack and I received these really nice kits from Manscaped, which are the, can you show that?
Show that off.
Which are the perfect kits. They come with the really cool little, is it called
I think the clippers.
Yeah, the
you got
clippers
here,
which is the lawnmower. Now, let me tell you about these clippers. First off, it's got a shield. It's got a ceramic blade and a shield so that when you shave your nethers, it does not nick. And trust me, I've used this.
The old beanbag.
Yes. The other thing is, let's see. Oh, it is on. You can see it's got a little LED light so you can see what you're doing down there.
In the darkness.
In the darkness.
Of the dank areas.
Right. Triple canopy.
Yeah.
And then with this kit, you also get a really nice reviver, which is a nice little tonic for the aftershave experience. And a little, I can't pull it out, but a little deodorant. So anyway, Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over the technology developments to provide you with the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. And I'm telling you, this is honest, it's a good product. I like it. My girlfriend likes it.
That's a good endorsement.
Yeah.
That's an endorsement right there.
So guys, it's not the 70s, Don't let the wild stuff grow. What do you think about that, Mike? You're
Yes,
on.
sir.
We've got you.
Yes, sir.
Do you think grooming is an important thing?
Yeah, Manscaped for all my ball shaving needs, bro.
There you go.
Totally. They've got my business.
Guys, if you're going to shave your balls, use Manscaped.
Yeah.
And if you don't shave your balls, you should start.
Team 20 promo code.
Say again?
Team 20 promo code.
Oh yeah, we've got a promo code. If you go to promo code Team20, you'll get a 20% off discount on your order. Thanks, D. That's D, our producer.
Team 20.
Team 20 discount code. So, Mike, you had a hell of an experience in 1980s Cav. A lot of insane stuff going on there. When was it that Special Forces enters into the picture for you and you get into thinking, maybe this is my way into the not crazy army?
Yeah. So like I said, the Delta Force recruiter came through, and I got to see that cool video where, people are fucking taking out terrorists on planes and shit like that, and it's very badass. I'm like, yeah, this is fucking awesome. The guy's like, cool, you got to be E5 and you got to be 21. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'll talk to you when I'm 21. Fucking sucks to be me. But anyway, so the SF recruiter came by 6 months later, and he's like, hey man, we just dropped the requirement from being an E4P to E4 because we need people. So I was an E4, like I said, I was a 19-year-old corporal, and I fit all the requirements for SF. So I joined SF. I went to assessment as a 19-year-old. I think I turned 20 in assessment in 1990, and I loved it. I loved assessment, man. Like my very first school in the military after OSIT was assessment, and I fucking love the whole idea of like, hey man, here's your task. Nobody's gonna fuck with you. Nobody's gonna yell at you. Like go do this. Go move from this one map sheet to the other. Go build this Flintstone fucking contraption out of telephone poles and go move it from here to there. Go carry all these fucking sandbags. But it's like nobody was yelling at me. I mean, everything was kind of on your own time. And I loved it. I mean, I liked it, and I gotta tell you, man, doing stuff like that when you're like a 19-year-old dude is a lot easier than doing it when you're older, because you're just trying to like make everybody happy, I guess. Somebody tells you fucking, hey, you might want to move out with a sense of purpose, and you're like, yeah, roger that. I'm gonna move out with a fucking sense of purpose. And I do love a physical challenge. Like I love the obstacle courses. I loved all that shit. I was like I said, I wrestled and I was a track athlete. And you know, man, I can go climb ropes and fucking run around on telephone poles and shit all day. I like that stuff. I would rather do that than sit in a classroom and, you know, I mean, sometimes I think SF is just where like all the, you know, guys with ADHD go or something, you know. But I like being outdoors. I like doing physical shit. I trained up for assessment. I took it very seriously. I was lucky at that point for being at Bliss because I could train on sand for all of it, and I think that's something people miss. So I was told to give some pro tips on assessment while I was on here, so I'm going to do that just to keep the viewers interested. Train on sand, you know, is good. And a trick I did when I went, I was told to get those knee-high nylons, you know, so like. Go get like the fucking, you know, I got like size 13 feet, man, so it's like go find the biggest fucking ladies nylons you can find, the flesh colored ones, and I wore those under my socks. And I went to the bowling alley, and I think it's called like New Skin or Tough Skin or something. And I would, every day I would paint the balls of my feet and the heels of my feet with that stuff, and it basically kept, I never got a blister through all of assessment until the final March, in which case I didn't fucking care at that point. So I basically painted the balls of my feet every day with this stuff the bowlers use to keep their skin from abrading, and I wore nylons under my socks, and that worked great. Never got a blister, and yeah, you know, like I said, assessment was good. I liked it. I liked what I saw of SF. When I was on my last night there, one of the instructors came into the barracks, and and they'd come in and they'd yell a number, right? They'd yell a number, and those guys were gone. You know, and those were typically guys who, like, shit came up on their psych test, or, you know, something else had happened during the course, but they'd allow them to go to the end of assessment, but they didn't select them. Okay. So one night, you know, like the last night, one of the instructors comes into the barracks and he reads my number. And I'm like, shit, you know, I think I was 192, you know, and he's like, 192, you know, come out here. And I went out and talked to the dude, and I was like, you know, fuck, man. And he goes, I was looking at your paperwork and I noticed you're 19. And I was like, yeah, you know, and he goes, I came in SF when I was 19 too. He said, you got a lot of good years ahead of you. I envy you. You got a lot of good years ahead of you. And sure as shit, man, like, that was absolutely correct. I had a lot of good years in SF. SF was awesome. I did probably 20 out of my 25 years in the Army in SF, and it was a blast. I liked everything about it. I liked the people. I liked the work. I liked the fact that the job changed every couple of years. It never got stale. It was always interesting. It was always, you know, a good challenge, man. And like, shit, I got to see a lot of the world, meet a lot of people, and do a lot of cool stuff. So that was basically my my entry into SF was get me the fuck out of the cab, just like my entry into the cab was get me the fuck out of Ann Arbor.
Were you familiar with Special Forces before you went in the Army through like movies or TV or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd seen the Green Beret.
Sure.
You know, I like war movies growing up, so I'd seen some stuff about it. You know, like when I joined the Army, I mean, they give you that recruitment pamphlet, and you got the picture of the guys with the Green Berets and, you know, all that stuff. So that looked cool, but, you know, like I said, mostly, you know, I'd love to say I went in the Army with this, like, sense of unified purpose and had a grand plan for the whole time. But, you know, like I said, man, going SF at 19 was basically just get me the fuck out of Fort Bliss.
You know, it's almost, I think sometimes for people it's almost easier when it's like that, because when it's like your dream, I think that people sometimes make it harder. Whether it's SF or anything else, they make it harder than what it is, because it's the penultimate of what they can achieve.
Like, built it up in their mind.
Yeah, they build it up in their minds. Whereas when you just kind of stumble into it, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. You know. Was there a time when you were in the cab when you were thinking, like, you had a kind of crappy experience in the Army initially, and you were exposed to the stuff, the exact reason that you went into the Army in the first place, just to get away from that stuff. Was there a time when you were planning on getting out, and so like the Army is just fucked, and I don't want to have anything to do with it?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely, man. I can I can remember calling my parents and asking them if they had any money for me to go to college, and my dad was like, "No, motherfucker, you're on your own." And I was like, "God damn," because all I was thinking was, "This is the worst decision I ever made in my life, man. I'm out in the cab and it sucks, and this sucks, and everything sucks." And I was like, "This is terrible. Why did I do this to myself?" So yeah, there was definitely a point where I was like, "Man, get me the fuck out of here. I don't want to do this anymore." But like I said, going to SF was awesome. I liked the people. I liked what I saw of it. I did like doing all the physical shit, and then so they picked me to be a medic. That was my thing. That was the job they gave me. It was like, go be a medic. I didn't want to be a medic, man. I looked at it like, I can be an awesome fucking weapons sergeant, or I can be a mediocre medic. And at that point in my life, I don't think I had barely any empathy whatsoever, and I was just like, I don't want to be a medic because I don't care about people. Like, fuck people, which, like I said, man, I'm 20. I think we're all kind of borderline sociopaths at that point in our lives anyways. So I didn't want to be a medic. I did a year of the medic course, and then I intentionally failed. I failed a couple of exams, and I thought I was going to be slick, man. So you still had the bear program there. You had like the bonus enlistment, something. Well, basically, the 18 series MOSs were all bear MOSs. So the way I thought I could work this was, I was going to fail the 18 Delta course, and then I was going to re-enlist as an 18 Bravo, because my assessment was still good. Like, assessment was good for, I think, a year back then. And so I was gonna game the system. I was gonna flame out on the Delta course, and I was gonna go be a Bravo. And so I went to the board because I'd failed a couple of exams, and they were like, they were all concerned, man. My academic average had been great up till then. So all of a sudden it's like, I'm failing these exams, and they're asking me if I got personal problems, is there something going on at home? Is there an emergency? And I was like, no, I just failed a couple of exams on purpose because I don't want to be here. And Jesus Christ, they were like, get the fuck out of here, man. Barter enlistment, we're gonna send you back to the cab, motherfucker. We don't even want to deal with your ass right now. So they were like, barter enlistment, you're out of SF, we're gonna send you back to the cab. And the next day, the first sergeant's calling the 19 series branch, and they're like, how much time does he have left in the Army? And he's like, how much time you got left? And I think I had, I don't know, fucking 6 months or something. I mean, there was a reason I timed this the way I did, because for the bear thing to work, it had to be in a certain window.
Right.
Again, not that it worked at all. But so he's calling the fucking 19 series branch manager, going, "Hey man, I'm sending this guy back to you." And the 19 series people are like, "He doesn't have enough time left in the Army. You got to give him a job. Figure out something to fucking do with him." So they made me like the medical supply sergeant assistant at the 18 Delta course. So I'm literally washing fucking rectal thermometers and shit. they're giving me this literal shit job, It's like, this is your punishment for trying to fucking, game the system and, suffer. So I do that for a few months, and one day the CO, Major Moloff, I remember this guy. He hooked me up, man. Major Moloff. One of my memories of Major Moloff is being on a jump in Fort Sam Houston, and his wife was an aviation officer. And we were on a fucking jump, and someone goes, "Hey man, look," and I look, and Moloff's flying the fucking helicopter. There's his wife. He's up there with his wife, and he's flying the fucking helicopter, and I'm like, yeah, good. I feel a lot better about all this. So Moloff one day, he looks at me and he goes, "Hey man, what are you doing these days? What's going on with you anyways?" And one of the instructors at the 18 Delta course was an old SEAL. I mean, like a crusty old fucking SEAL. And he'd done a couple of years in the French Foreign Legion on an exchange program with the SEALs. And I got the number for the French Foreign Legion recruiter from this dude. I was going to go join the French Foreign Legion, you know. So Moloff goes, "What are you doing these days, Perry?" And I was like, "Well, you know, sir, I'm going to go join the French Foreign Legion and, you know, do that." And he's like, "What the fuck are you going to go join the French Foreign Legion for?" And I was like, "Well, you know, they gave me a barter re-enlistment." And he was like, "What?" You know, why the fuck did they do that? I don't know. That's your first sergeant, you know. So he's like, "Look, man," he goes, "check it out." He goes, "I want you to take 24 hours and, like, don't join the French Foreign Legion in 24 hours, and I'll see what I can do for you." And so the next day, he's got a slot for me in the 18 Bravo Corps. So I was like, okay, that's cool, you know. Oh, I got another 24-hour fucking story from the 18 Delta course I want to tell. So while I was in the 18 Delta course, one of the things that bothered me was, you know, I left the cab thinking, man, the cab's never going to do fucking anything like this, you know, unless the World War III breaks out and these guys go die in the Fulda Gap. Like, these guys aren't doing anything. I'm in the 18 Delta course. I'm watching my old unit railhead for Desert Shield.
Yeah.
Okay. And I felt bad about it. Like, I literally felt like I'd abandoned a bunch of dudes. So, you know, I didn't really know I had any, I don't know, affinity or, like, you know, loyalty to that unit. But watching the dudes railhead and realizing, like, guys I fucking worked with for years were going to go off to war and I wasn't there, I felt bad about that. So I'd asked the first sergeant, not the one who gave me the barter re-enlistment, but the guy who replaced him, or the guy previous to him, I think it was. I'd asked him about getting out of the Q course to go back to my job as a 19 Delta, and the dude said, "Look, man," he goes, "if you want to do that, I'll help you with it." He goes, "but the way it's going to be interpreted is a voluntary withdrawal. If you do this, you'll never come back to SF. You've quit, and nobody cares why you quit. You've quit, and you're done." He goes, "but if you want to go through with it," he goes, "I'll do my best to get you the best cab scout job you can get." He goes, "I'll try to get 1/17th cab to give you, like, a door gunner job. You know, like, I'll call everybody I can think of." And I was like, cool. He goes, "but I want you to take 24 hours to think about it." You know, and that was my introduction to, like, you should be able to make all your important life decisions within 24 hours. Or, you know.
Well, plus that war was over by the time you had to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
I said plus that war was over by the time you had to make a decision, right?
Well, that's the thing. And the next day I said no, and the war was over in, like, 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I really made the right call on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been,
you know,
that'd have been rough.
So you make
that
it to...
that was First Sergeant James.
Yeah.
That was First Sergeant James, and I remember that dude because we wound up, so this was 1990, and in 1998 we wound up working on the sniper committee together, and that same dude gave me his coin when he retired, and I got this, that's like the only coin I fucking like out of 25 years in the Army. I got this coin, this old fucking Master Sergeant wore, like, wired up under his Sunto watch. He had the thing up under his Sunto, so it was always there, and the wear marks indicate that. And he gave me this fucking coin when he retired, and on the fucking where the name goes on the coin, he'd engraved "Eat Me." You know, so the coin says fucking "Eat Me with honor," you know, like you got the with honor part under it, and it's like "Eat Me with honor," you know. And I was like, that's the coolest fucking coin in the world, and it's all ancient and worn out, and I fucking love it. And I still carry that thing with me to this day.
Mike,
but that was James.
Tell us about landing in First Group. What was going on there in 1990? Some of the places you got sent, the personalities you met.
First Group in the 90s?
Yeah. Tell us about your first team, some of those early deployments.
Okay, so I got out to First Group. First team I was on, I was a junior weapons guy on a recon team. You know, at the time, it was the companies all had a Halo team, the companies all had a scuba team. So you had like a recon team, a mountain team, a small boat team, a Halo team, a scuba team, and then you had an SOT team, which was like a mini CIF for whatever fucking reason that existed.
Yeah.
I still to this day don't even understand why such a thing was there. Like hey, here's your 12-man SWAT team, like go do an assault with it or something, you know,
right.
like with all your dudes. So I was on a recon team, and because of what was going on in the Balkans, they reconfigured one recon team per battalion to be a CSAR team, Combat Search and Rescue team. So I was on the team that became the Combat Search and Rescue team. I was on there for about a year, so we were practicing basically like picking up C-130s full of people, stuff like that. And, you know, like I said, the Balkans was driving mission then, Haiti was driving mission then. Those are the two big things that were driving mission. The other big change that was going on at that point, which was significant, was, you know, Bill Clinton had just been elected. And when I got the first group, you had quite a bit of, like, core alumni of the Vietnam War. All your senior battalion and group positions were Vietnam vets, like all of them. You know, all your commanders, you had old warrants in the fucking tree shop that were all Vietnam vets. You know, one of my introductions to a team, I was looking at the team SOPs, and they had the whole thing about like keeping your weapon off safe with your finger off the trigger. And, you know, again, man, I grew up around guns. Like my one grandfather was active with the NRA ILA, and I've been around guns all my life, and like I'd never seen anything like in my personal life or professional life that was talking about running around with a gun with your safety off, and you know the whole like, you know, this is my fucking safety thing, right?
Right.
So I was like, man, that's not right. That's not right. And you know, I'm the weapons guy, man. I'm like, fuck this. You know, this SOP doesn't look right to me. And the team sergeant's like, well, go over to the S3 shop and talk to Chief Rod about it. You know, and I'm like, okay, you know. So I'm like heading over to talk to fucking Chief Rod, man. And as I'm leaving the fucking team room, he goes, hey, man, make sure you ask Chief Rod about those 4 near ambushes he survived in Vietnam. You know, so
right.
Yeah, it was kind of a lesson, and you know, like, okay, hey man, like, yeah, these guys have been there and done that, and they fucking, you know, like, you know, listen to these dudes. So I was like, okay, well, you know, that makes sense. And you know, Chief Rod's whole thing was looking at it from the perspective of being a point man on a patrol and running into a point man on a patrol and things coming down to quarters of a second. This was the exact same stuff that would come up later, like going into Iraq in 2007. You know, we were doing the exact same thing, fucking safeties off, fingers up the fucking trigger bar, you know, trigger bar safety. For the same reason, because again, man, you round a corner and somebody's standing there with a fucking AK looking at you, and it has come down to decimals and quarters of a second.
Yeah.
So that was, you know, that was good kind of like lesson learned. But yeah, so we had all these Vietnam vets, tons of experienced Vietnam vets. Bill Clinton got elected, and all these dudes were like, fuck this. You know, I'm out of here, man. I saw this movie under Carter. We're going to be doing jumps off of deuce and a halfs again because we won't have any fucking aviation fuel. Like, fuck all this. And they all left. They were all like, we're out. You know, peace out, deuces. So you had this kind of like mass exodus of the Vietnam vets, you know, the experienced guys, and you had your first wave of commanders that didn't have any combat experience. And this would come up later because, you know, the way I describe the dynamic is I came in and when I was a junior guy, when I was a young guy, the people I had running the show had enormous amounts of combat experience. Okay? Fast forward down the road, and what you wound up with is you wound up with like junior to mid-level guys that had enormous amounts of combat experience, and senior leadership that had fucking none.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they were in Desert Storm. Maybe they'd done some desk jobs with JSOC, but generally, you know, you wound up with very seasoned guys on the bottom and then the middle, and then you had guys on the top that were fucking trying to fake it till they could make it.
Right. Well,
I saw that as kind of a huge dynamic.
Clinton also had, I think, the two other policies. He had the up or out, which really hurt, like the enlisted branch, and I think some of the officers do. Either you get promoted or you're booted, and then the whole zero defect thing, where like if you make a mistake, which put leaders in a real bind. If you make a mistake, a bad AAR, a bad officer eval.
So the corporatization.
Yeah. It was a rough time.
As much as I like to bash Clinton, I can't put that on him because the whole zero defects thing, that was a post Desert Storm. That was the no more Task Force Smith. We're gonna go from 18 divisions to 10. Desert Shield, Desert Storm. It was like, hey, look, this this proved that we can employ National Guard and Reserve units as well as active. So let's get rid of 8 divisions, and all the up or out and zero tolerance and zero defect. All that shit came out of the drawdown.
Okay.
It was all about getting rid of 8 divisions worth of guys.
Interesting.
What I thought Clinton did that was bad for morale was. Fucking Haiti. Obviously, nobody liked Haiti. Haiti was a huge blow to morale. So we lost all our Vietnam vet alumni, and then we had Haiti, where guys were going down and getting Article 15s for having their LBV unbuckled or for having outer reg facial hair. We were putting SF guys under 10th Mountain. 10th Mountain was handing out Article 15s and ruining careers left and right. I'll tell you. Little bit of history. So prior to Haiti, you weren't going to be able to pull a guy's tab. Once a guy got his tab, that was like his fucking tab forever, man. Like that was just kind of one of those things. They changed that during Haiti because we had so many guys voluntarily withdrawing from SF. I want you to think about that. We had guys just going, hey man, I don't want to fucking be here anymore. I watched the Halo team start, and I watched a fucking Sky God, old seasoned dude who everyone loved. He said, man, I'd rather be a fucking battalion motor NCO than this. And that's what they reclassed them as.
Damn.
Because so many guys were leaving SF, they were like, fuck it, start pulling these guys tabs to discourage them.
Oh, wow.
So that's where that started. That started, I remember that starting around, 93-ish, where it's like, hey, man, yeah, if you want to leave SF, that's fine. We're going to pull your tab. Fuck you.
Did your ODA... Did your ODA go down to Haiti?
No. So I'll tell you how that worked. So, I was on a recon / CSAR team for a year as a junior. I wound up doing the mandatory 18 Bravo, you're going to go be an ammo NCO for fucking 6 months up at the B team. I wound up doing that. While I was doing that, I had the opportunity to learn Indonesian. So I learned Thai in language school. I was good with languages before I lost my hearing. And my goal was always to learn 5 languages. It's first group. One language doesn't really get you very far. Thai's great if I'm in Thailand and I'm someplace where they're speaking the central dialect, but it's not like it's going to get me very far in any other country. So my goal was always to learn 5 languages. I wanted to get about a 1-1 rating in 5 different languages. So I had a decent rating in Thai. They let me go to one of the concurrent language training programs and take Indonesian. So I picked up Indonesian as my second, military language. I learned German in junior high, and I went to Reforger in 1988, and I was whipping out my fucking German in Germany. So West Germany, West Germany.
Right.
I feel fucking ancient when I say that, but I could get through about 3 sentences before people figured out I wasn't from there. But Thai kind of wiped out my German, but after that I tried to keep it in similar language groups. So I learned Indonesian. While I was taking Indonesian, one of the team sergeants was in Indonesian with me, and he was the team sergeant from the mountain team. And the guy, seemed like he was impressed by me, and he offered me a senior weapons gig on his team, and I took it. And I became the senior weapons guy on ODA 192, coming over from ODA 191, and I was there for several years. That was the ODA I spent the longest time on in my career, was the Mountain ODA. Now, we never went to Haiti because my team sergeant, Butch, who was by far one of the best NCOs I've ever worked for, Butch got us into counter-narcotics, and I think a lot of that had to do with not wanting to go to Haiti, because we didn't go to fucking Haiti. So we did counter-narcotics. We did counter-narcotics for a couple of years. That kept us out of Haiti. Also, you've got pretty much unlimited budget. I learned how to do JOS requests. I can remember sitting on the fucking Mexican border in 1995 with like some handheld Magnavox thermal imagers that were super high speed at the time. But they made a purring sound like a cat, so you'd be like sitting there looking into this fucking thermal, and it'd be like, and it would all about put you to sleep, man. It's like having a fucking cat purring next to your face, you know. I was like, man, this is not a good engineering feature, you know. They should make this like, you know, less mellow.
So how did that work? That you guys were not a National Guard team; you were active duty, but deployed down in the Mexican border.
Yeah, well, the whole JTF 6 thing was such a it was like, hey man, no, you're not working with law enforcement. You know, if you're doing reconnaissance training and see something, say something. So if you happen to see something while you're doing reconnaissance training on the Mexican border, then perhaps you should call your local law enforcement, which is the border patrol, whose frequency you happen to have in your radio, because you know you were deconflicting land use agreements in their area. And it was all this very like cutout thing, because I mean we're doing ride-alongs with the border patrol and you know, shit like that. But it was this, you know, that was your legal boilerplate to get around the posse comitatus. Was like, no man, you're just training in the area, and if you're doing a ride-along, you're doing a ride-along as an interested citizen, not as a soldier.
Interesting.
You couldn't wear any of your military shit on the ride-alongs, and it was all, you know, I mean, we went down there because the peso devalued in December 1994, and we were on the border in January 1995 because illegal immigration had gone up 1,000%, and with the immigration was drugs, and it was a real eye-opener, man. Like, I gotta tell you, fucking working the border, I spent 90 days on the border. And it was just some fucking misery. That was my impression of the war. That was a lot of human misery. There was a lot of suffering. I can remember one night I was pulling radio watch in the border patrol station, and so back then you'd have the cells full by 8. You stop detaining people after 8. Okay. There were 2 exceptions, and that was third country nationals. So if you caught Chinese on the border, which happened occasionally, you kept them because somebody would want to talk to them in the morning, and drugs, you know. But for just illegal immigration, you're telling people just turn the fuck around, man. Turn the fuck around, because we can't fit you in the cell anymore, you know. So you'd fill the cells till they were capacity, which was usually by 8 o'clock at night. And so I'm in there one night, I'm pulling radio watch, and it was raining out, and I remember, you know, some motion at the corner of my eye and looking up, and there was like this cell like crammed full of women, and they were like stripping down, trying to get out of their clothes so they could dry them, and I remember being embarrassed that like I was looking at them, and then, you know, just the fact that they were at that point where they were trying to like get out of their fucking soaking wet clothes and like huddle together for warmth, you know, like fucking SEER school or something, you know, it made an impression on me. I mean, it was just, like I said, it was a lot of fucking misery. That's what I saw. I saw misery. I saw people that were coming to the U.S. to, basically they work a ag worker circuit, you know, they pick fruit up the coast and then go to Canada, then they go back home around Christmas to bring the money back with them, and, you know, that was what the peso crash did in, you know, December 94, 95. So 95 was all drug interdiction. Let me back up a little. I want to tell you about fucking going to Ranger School in '93. because I'm talking about border stuff, so I don't want to skip this. So in '93, Cambodia had its first election, to vote out the Khmer Rouge. And, we had been there for, I think, Cobra Gold, and they extended us, and they extended a lot of the SF teams. And we were sitting on the Cambodian border, and, basically we were like on a contingency standby to go in if there was trouble. And we were eating local, and breakfast the fucking first day was pig's blood that had been boiled down until solidified, cut into cubes, and put over rice. And I was like, man, it's going to be a long couple of weeks on the fucking Cambodian border. So I went from like Cobra Gold, where I'm not eating that well to begin with. Like every time I went to Thailand, it's like a protein deficiency. So I went from like Cobra Gold to like a couple of weeks on the Cambodian border. And then I went to Ranger School. I had a 48-hour break between like the border and Ranger School. And I went in to Ranger School all fucking like ribs sticking out, all fucking emaciated. I didn't even bother like unpack shit. I just packed the stuff for the packing list and left everything else. So when I got to Ranger School and we're doing the equipment shakedown, I got like a fucking mosquito net and a camp stove and shit like that, and the RIs are kicking my shit all around. Like, why the fuck you bring a stove, Ranger? You gonna cook some chow? I'm all fucking surly, man. I'm like, I can't believe I've got to put up with this shit. But I gotta tell you, like, my introduction to group, I got to group in fucking 92, and the first thing they did, they sent me to pre-scuba in like December 92, man, and I crashed and burned, and I went in and I was all like, no problem, man, I can run 6-minute miles all day, I'm gonna fucking like gut my way through this, I'm gonna fucking muscle through, and it was like, no, dude, I'd get in the pool and it'd be like dudes lapping me, like chubby guys are lapping me, like I can crush ground PT every day, but I suck the whole rest of the day, so I totally crashed and burned, and December 92, in January 93, they're like, we didn't have enough guys graduate pre-scuba, so we're having another one. So I got to go to pre-scuba again. I didn't ask for either one of these. This was like the fucking new guy, Oh, and by the way, you're the piss master. You got to go to bus driving school, and you're the fucking fire marshal, bitch. So. Fucking January 93, I at least made it to the end of the course, and then I think I got like 15 fucking events or something at the end. I passed like 7 of them, and I was like, no. So had I not crashed and burned on 2 free scubas, like immediately, had that not been my introduction to fucking group, I probably would have just been like, fuck you, I don't need a Ranger tab either, man, and lap, but I didn't want to be like Mr. 3 Strikes, so like this with the new guy. So I was like, I gotta pass Ranger School, man, I can't go on without this shit. So yeah, Ranger School was a fucking trip. But anyway, so yeah, 95, I'm on the border. We did the border. I got married that year. We were so busy in 95, my CEO literally told me, I can give you 72 hours to get married. Like that's it. You can't have any more time than that. You got 72 fucking hours. That's how busy that year was. And, I think about that shit a lot, how even peacetime SF, I mean, like the 90s was a great era. Yeah, I got to compete in some teams and go to a lot of cool training and do some cool shit. But even in the fucking 90s, man, you could be deployed 10 months out of the year, no problem.
Well,
like deployment op tempo has never let up. Like my entire career was always like you're gone all the time.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of people who are familiar with the global war on terror, the war on terror, they forget about the war on drugs when that's where all the money went. All the money went to, the Just Say No and the war on drugs and
SF teams were also deployed all over the world on JSATs, doing all these training missions, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Germany, literally any country you care to name, like there's probably an ODA there at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And so the thing was, the other thing that was going on in the 90s that was such a huge game changer was meth. Methamphetamine was blowing up all over the fucking place and all over Asia. So we went into the Golden Triangle that year. We went into the Golden Triangle. The DEA guys told me we went into the Golden Triangle further than any of them had ever fucking been in, and that was 95. We went in with a 60-man Thai Border Patrol police contingent and went in and did some fucking burns. And that was cool. That was like
No shit, you guys were
when I
burning
did
down
my
drug
OCS
labs.
board, and they were like, "You got any leadership experience?" I was like, "I led fucking Thai Border Patrol police into the fucking Golden Triangle and did, controlled burns with them."
Wait, when you say burns, do you mean labs or crops?
I've got some leadership experience, but what's that?
I'm sorry, sorry, but when you say burns, you mean like labs or crops or like the whole?
Yeah, I mean that's
Crops. You want to go in and burn marijuana. You want to burn enough marijuana where you could say you were getting shit done, but nobody will, nobody's gonna kill you for marijuana. If you went in and started burning massive amounts of opium, you're gonna get fucking killed, man.
Right.
So it was one of those like, yeah, you're there to do some fucking eradication, but look, all the Thai Border Patrol police I worked with had bullet holes. Like, fucking all them dudes had bullet holes. Or, you're talking cops with M60s and fucking, it's the Golden Triangle, man. Like, it's very fluid up there. You got, at the time, Kun Sar was the major player. You had like a 17,000 man private army with artillery and air force. So, it's one of those, like, yeah, you want to go in and kind of like map the area out and you want to do some eradication so everybody's happy, but you don't want to get a bunch of people killed either, because frankly, you got 60 fucking dudes and a backyard of somebody who's got 17,000 guys. So
Yeah.
Be sensible. And that trip was fucking pretty amazing. But I'll tell you what, the other thing my team was doing at the time was we were on standby for the Balkans, which was, like I said, driving a lot of missions at the time. So my mountain team was on call. We were on contingency standby to go call close air support to cover the UN withdrawal. So what we were expecting at the time, this is back when the UN was getting staked to runways by the Serbs. This is when the UN was getting brutalized by the Serbs. What we expected to happen at some point was we expected the Serbs to chase the fucking UN the fuck out of the Balkans. And NATO's plan was at that point we were going to go in and we were going to fucking cover the withdrawal so they didn't get massacred in retrograde. So for a couple of years on my mountain team, we practiced doing CAS. That was like the biggest thing we practiced doing was CAS. We went to all kinds of different CAS schools and bombing ranges, and we worked with all kinds of CAS platforms, and it was cool, man. We brought a 60mm mortar with us everywhere, and we used white phosphorus as markers, and it was neat, man.
Yeah.
A lot of experience. But 95, that mission came down, not to go in and call CAS, but like the contingency mission came that like, hey man, we're going into the Balkans now. And we were in the Golden Triangle and we didn't get to go, and they sent the team across the hall, which was my old team,
Yeah.
And they wound up getting thrown out of country, but I don't think it was their fault. Literally, like again, these are my old teammates, so they didn't have any reason to lie to me. When I asked them what the fuck happened, my old running buddy, the medic, said, they got a woman had come to their camp and said, look, man, the Russians just went through town and like rounded up all the prostitutes and took them to their camp, like not willingly, and, like, can you come get these women out of the camp? So they said they took a truck over there and kind of had a bit of a confrontation with the Russian troops and loaded all the girls on the truck and fucking left. And they said they were pulling up to their camp with a truck full of fucking sex workers, and like somebody from the State Department got called to come see what's going on and showed up, and here's a bunch of SF guys in a truck full of fucking sex workers, and it was like, dude, like, pack your shit and get the fuck out, man. You guys are off.
Yeah.
And,
I've heard of that kind of stuff happening.
I don't want to hear your fucking
a bunch of times over the years, like ODAs. Like, it's a political decision. It's not something to take personally. It's just like the ODA ends up grinding against something politically in the country, and the answer is just send them, get these guys out of here, send them home. And it's not because they were jackasses. It's just like it's politics. It's international politics.
Well, and it's either something politically in the country or sometimes political, like with the State Department.
Sometimes,
sometimes. The State Department's a little.
Well, what's funny about this too? This is like 95, man. We haven't really had any like combat for a while, so the group commander was like, hey, our guys are coming home from the Balkans, let's throw them a parade. So he had us all line the streets of First Group in Lewis. And like, as these guys come in, we're all clapping, and it's just like, yay, look at our fucking homecoming heroes. And then, like, the next day he gets the call saying, like, no, these guys got thrown out of country for having a truck full of sex workers. And furious.
That's awesome.
Mike, the other thing about the 90s that, I think soured a lot of military guys was Somalia, right? In 93. Well, that was 93, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in 93. I don't know, did that affect, I know that was more like 5th Group 7 or whatever, but did that affect you guys at all?
Yeah, it did. I'm gonna take a pee break.
Sure.
Some ball shaving stuff, and
You got
I'll be right
it.
back. I'm gonna grab
come
some
back to that.
beers, and I'm gonna have to hit the men's room.
Guys, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate, there's like 260, 270, 280 people watching tonight live, which is pretty cool. And of course, everyone who's going to watch this subsequently. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon and select all notifications to make sure that you get notified every time we go live in the future. Down in the description, you'll find some links for our Patreon page that you can sign up for if you want to support this channel and what we do, and that will get you access to all the bonus segments we do. I'll try to twist Mike's arm and do a bonus segment with him, but there's literally days worth of video in there at this point with like 80 guests.
And the bonus segments are great. Like, ask anybody in our live chat who's a member of our Patreon. $1 a month or more will get you into that. And our guests will talk about things that they don't get a chance to talk to you on the show,
Behind the scenes,
or things that they don't want to talk about publicly. Sometimes the stories get a little racy in body, but
purple prose.
Yeah, but it helps us out. It pays our rent. It buys
Absolutely.
our scotch. Now we have a producer, and that's all thanks to everybody who watches us.
D, say hello.
Hello, guys.
D, actually,
That's Steve.
Don't be a faceless voice. Come over and say hello.
Hey, guys. Is this my good side?
Go over here. This is your good side.
This is D.
This is D. Again, because of you guys supporting the show, we now have a producer, and that's why you see all these like cool camera angles, and the show is just much more dynamic.
Yeah.
And also, there's a link down in the description if you want to get your Team House merch. Where is it? Where's my damn coffee mug?
Oh, you're good. Where is our coffee mug? Here it is. Here's one.
Grab that one up. Coffee mugs, t-shirts, all that good stuff. All right, so we're back with Mike Perry. Mike, okay, so around 95, super busy. Somalia happens 1993. Let's start pushing the timeline a little bit forward here, going into the mid to late 1990s.
Sure. Well, on Somalia.
Yeah.
When I was in Hawaii as an infantry platoon leader, which was 98, 99, and 99, the 1st Group CIF came through. And, I knew half the guys on the fucking CIF at that point. And they were doing a scenario where they were basically replicating a Black Hawk Down scenario. So the Sergeant Major of the CIF at that point was, had been in Somalia with Delta. And he wanted to basically do the Black Hawk Down scenario, and we used them outside in Hawaii.
Over and over and over, yeah.
One of the best pieces of training I've ever seen. Had a burning fucking Black Hawk fuselage in the middle, and my platoon got to be out for. Aside from a guy getting his eye shot out that night, not my platoon. I think he was one of the combo guys in SF. A guy got his eye shot out. And all I'm going to say is, when you're working with simunition, if you need to clear fog off your goggles, like go to a corner, turn to the corner, and like clear your shit. Don't do it any other way. Somebody will definitely shoot you in the face, and that's what happened to this.
Simunitions are, just for our viewers, simunitions is like paintball, but it's actually a round that fit. You change out the upper receiver on
A 9mm round, paint round.
and it's a round, and it moves fast, and it's paint, but it can do harm. It can do serious harm.
It fucking hurts. I won't lie. It hurts.
They fucking hurt. They fucking hurt. They'll put a big welt on your face.
Yeah.
And that was always the funny thing was on deployments was watching how many guys would have like a big old fucking cherry on their face from this ammunition, man. This ammunition will teach you the value of cover and concealment and the difference between the two of them, and they're amazing. I think it's one of the finest training tools I ever saw in the Army. This simunition round and the blower suit are probably two of my favorite things for training people how to, put stun down.
Much better than a blank firing adapter, right? I said much better than a blank firing adapter and.
Oh God, Miles gear.
Miles.
Hey,
let's
train all our people to hide behind leaves.
Right. Because it would
like,
stop the laser. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of shit will stop a laser, but not necessarily a fucking AK round. So who knows, man. But yeah, so like I said, about 99, we were practicing for Somalia again. Somalia drove a whole lot of changes actually. And when I got to the CIF later in life, I realized just how much Somalia had generated a lot of discussion for how to better fucking shoot people. Honestly, there was a lot of the community that wanted to move back to the 7.62 round after that. But talking to the guys who were involved in the decision making process, they were like, it's not practical. It's still, I heard this throughout my career. I heard this consistently, and I heard it from people who I trust to give me the gospel. Shot placement is king. Shot placement is always king. Central nervous system hits are fucking king. That, you can have the best round in the world, and it doesn't matter if you can't put it where you need to. In a gunfight, I mean, somebody may die, but I used to get into the fucking differences between lethality and incapacitation with people all the time, and in a gunfight you want immediate incapacitation. Lethality ain't doing you any good. My friend shot a fucking dude's heart out with a 7.62 round. He blew that fucking dude's heart out. Now he said that guy continued to move at a fucking full clip for, a good 20 meters, man. So, that 20 meters can be the rest of your life in a gunfight. So, like I said, it's all about central nervous system hits and, taking out a person immediately, which, as a CIF sniper, that was a big thing, was practicing that fucking low percentage hostage target over and over again. Just
going for that flaccid paralysis.
Yup. The immediate incapacitation zone. The other PLs used to fucking laugh when I expressed it like the immediate incapacitation zone, otherwise known as the scuba mask. So yeah. Anyway, I guess I'll move forward to the later 90s. So go through like JTF 6 and all that. I got to spend some time in Korea. I spent most of the 90s working in Thailand. I got to work with everything from their Royal Marines to their Special Forces, their Rangers, their Border Patrol Police. I got to work with all sorts of people in Thailand. I got to go to Korea and work in a hollowed out mountain with the Korean Special Forces and watch their women do Taekwondo fucking every day in battalion formation, which was probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my fucking life. Like watching poetry in motion out there, kicking each other's ass.
A leaf in the wind.
So, in 97 I had a daughter, and I was an E7 at the time, and I was not happy with the amount of money I was making, and I was living in Tacoma, Washington, and the schools had metal detectors, so I wanted to give my kid a little bit better of an opportunity, so I put my OCS packet in, and I'll tell you straight up, man, I'm one of them dudes who, fucking hated officers my entire enlisted career, and I wasn't necessarily desiring to be one, but I did know that the money was better, and I knew that again I could probably put my kid in better schools, so I put my OCS packet in. 98 I went to OCS. I asked specifically for an infantry assignment. I had the 3 people who wrote my recommendation letters say that I'd be a good light infantry officer. Particularly, I was trying to get a light infantry assignment. I got what I wanted. I got 25th ID. My philosophy was, look, man, I've been teaching 7-8. I've been teaching light infantry techniques my entire fucking life. That's mostly what I did in SF. That's mostly what we were doing in SF back then. So it's like, let me go do infantry shit with people who speak English and have modern equipment, and that'll be great. That'll be awesome. It was not what I expected. Having 40 fucking 19 and 20 year olds working for you, first time away from home on your first job, that was, you know, you're not Erwin fucking Rommel, man. You're Jerry Springer sometimes. It was like me and the platoon sergeant were on rotation for, you know, you get calls on Friday night and the cops would be like, look, we're taking this dude to jail if, like, you know, the platoon sergeant of the PL doesn't show up. So you always wanted to, like, be there for your dudes. You wanted to take care of your guys, but it was, you know, after growing up in SF, it was such a different thing to just kind of be in this, like, guidance counselor, father figure, like, life mentor role for people. And man, it was a pain in the ass, but it was also a period of, I think, intense personal growth for me, because frankly, you know, you get kids who fucking grew up in some shit environment and they're getting fucking letters from their dad saying stuff like, you know, I'm gonna kill myself, I really mean it this time, you should think about it, I don't even know if you're fucking mine. I mean, what do you do with that, man? Like, you know, like, some of these kids got hamstrung right out the fucking gate, you know, so, I mean, shit, man, I got sympathy for people like that. My best friend got used as a fucking hostage by his uncle in an armed standoff with the police when he was 7 years old.
Jesus. Holy shit.
His own fucking uncle used them as a fucking hostage in an armed standoff. What do you do with that? You know, like at some point you look at people and go, man, you know, you were fucked from jump.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
So, like, the infantry was full of kids like that, so you try to take care of people, but at the same time, it's like, man, I got 40 motherfuckers I gotta worry about, so, you know, it's one of those, like, I'm gonna work with you as much as I can until I assess you as a hazard to the rest of the...
After OCS, did you had to go and do a tour in the conventional army, right, before coming back to SF?
Yep. Yeah, because you can't come back until you're a captain, so... I left as an E7, you know, got commissioned, went to the infantry, and then basically I did a year and a half as a PL, and then I did degree completion. I got a cool degree completion story, kind of, I guess. So I went and got a double degree in economics and business, and I tried to steer my education towards what I was doing in special forces. So I was taking a lot of, like, economics of developing countries. As part of the economics thing, I was taking a lot of industrial psychology for the SF stuff. I always thought, you know, industrial psychology is about, like, you know, team building and getting the most efficiency out of a team. So I figured that was a good path to follow for SF stuff. So I got a double degree, and I got a 4.0, and I fucking graduated valedictorian, and I got to write a valedictorian speech, and, you know, I wrote a valedictorian speech, and then, you know, I had to go talk to, like, the Council of Deans and give them my valedictorian speech draft, and it was the first time in my life I was, 31, I think. It was the first time in my life I'd ever heard anybody use the term politically correct. And, you know, unironically, where, you know, I'd use the phrase, like, the men of Special Forces, and they were like, you know, is this right? You know, and then it was like, oh, it is, you know, all men. And, you know, I'm sitting in the room, and I'm like, man, like, wow, you know, this is kind of surreal to me. But, you know, like I said, man, their fucking hearts are in the right place, but at the time I didn't appreciate it. I really didn't. So I'm home, and I'm rewriting my fucking speech. And the news comes on, and fucking, there's my friend Nate Chapman, who I was in Charlie 3-1 with. He was on 193 when I was on 192. I knew that guy for years, and there he is. He's dead. His face is on my television. I'm eating fucking cereal and writing my valedictorian speech, and my dead friend's on the fucking news. You know. You know, I rewrote my speech, and it was almost like aggressively, I think, fucking obnoxious. And, you know, there was a lot of, like, freedom isn't free shit in there. And, you know, anyway, sometimes I want to go back and fucking smack, you know, fucking, you know, January 2002 fucking self upside the head. My internet.
Mike, well, give us 1 second.
Mike's internet is skipping around a little bit.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike is actually out visiting his kid right now, and the internet isn't the best, so...
Mike Perry's bandwidth is low.
You guys got me now?
Yeah. Go ahead. So you did the speech. You got assigned to an infantry unit. You're trying to take care of these young men, and then eventually come back to SF.
Well, we were real quick though. I want to ask about Nate Chapman, because you said you were close with him, and can you tell us a little bit about Nate and who he was, where he was, what he was doing when he passed?
Well, that's the thing, man. So, first of all, Nate was one of probably the better people I've fucking ever met. He was a genuinely decent fucking human being. He was a nice guy. I at one point in my life I gave him some really bad advice, and I'm glad he didn't fucking take it. And I don't want to go into that, but like it was a life lesson for me about be careful about what you say to other people, because you know sometimes you're a fucking, you know, sometimes you're a role model to somebody and you don't fucking know it. So like be careful what message you send other people. Like I said, Nate was a fucking nice guy. He was a fucking genuinely decent dude. When he got killed, the fucking, like, a cover story came out that a 14-year-old kid had shot him, and you know, I understand the reason a cover story came out. I could get it. There was still an ongoing operation, but that exacerbated problems down the road in terms of his family being able to cope with the death. Because when you get a cover story laid on you, it makes you not want to believe, I guess, the official account that follows, because fuck, you already got lied to once. I mean, so there are a lot of layers to that death and how it affected people and how it affected immediate family and how it affected the unit in terms of like the sergeant major trying to do some damage control and talk, you know, to Nate's widow, and it was bad. I mean, like I said, there was some complexity to it, and it didn't just end with Nate dying.
Right.
And that's unfortunate because, you know, fuck, man, you're grieving. You got enough shit to worry about without wondering if somebody just handed you a bunch of shit.
Right.
You know.
And Nate was killed in Afghanistan, and he was SF, but he was detailed to a government agency. I think it's public now, right? That he was detailed.
Yeah, he was. From what I understand, he was detailed to the CIA over there. They you know, put some guys together, and you know, he was a commo guy. So at the time, he was working at the commo locker, and if I remember correctly, that's where he'd gone after C31. He went to the battalion commo locker, or maybe the group commo locker. That was kind of the last time I saw him, and yeah, I think they peeled him out of there. But, you know, like I said, the whole thing was fucked up. And, you know, Jesus, man, you know, I was pretty happy with being in college, you know, for a year and a half. I loved college. I loved the discourse. I loved the academia. Let me back up a little. When I was on the fucking mountain team, my team sergeant told me to go to college he told me to get some night classes while we were doing language training. So you got your 8 weeks every year of concurrent language training, and those were the only 8 weeks of the year you could count on being home. That was literally it. Those were the only fucking 2 months of the year you could count on being stable and being present. And my team sergeant told me, man, everybody on the team is going to fucking night school except you. You need to go to night school. And again, I got expelled from fucking high school at 15. I dropped out at 16. I wasn't going to fucking college. And I told the dude I hated school. Like, I'm not doing that. And he's like, you're not getting it. You need to go to fucking college, man. Anyway, long story short, Butch, my favorite team sergeant of all time, literally choked me the fuck out. He choked me the fuck out, and I came to, and I was puking, and I had a room full of guys laughing at me, and and it was like, you're going to fucking school, motherfucker. You're taking some night courses. So I took some night courses at Pierce. It got me an associate's. That's what allowed me to get into OCS. It turned out I loved college, but college was different from high school, and who fucking knew? So Butch is still to this day one of my favorite people in the whole fucking world for that move, because he was, I was a bit of a knucklehead, man. So he gave it to me in no uncertain terms that, like, look, motherfucker, you're gonna go to college, or I'm just gonna choke your ass fucking out every day until you figure it out. So, like, I like college. I fucking loved degree completion, and I loved the discourse, and, I was, reading up on, like, fucking linguistics and stuff in my spare time, and I worked at the English as a Second Language Center, and I had all kinds of students from Thailand and Indonesia. I had Indonesian students that were hiding out from the ethnic cleansing around 2000, 2001. It was great, but then Nick got killed, and all of a sudden, I felt like I'd cheated my brethren, like I'm fucking off in college, and, having fucking bento lunch in Chinatown and Waikiki, and, like, people are dying in Afghanistan. I felt like a piece of shit, frankly. I called fucking Branch and tried to terminate my commission and go back enlisted, because I knew, it was going to take me a while to get back into the game, and they were like, you can just basically go fuck yourself, like, we're not going to let you do that. How's that? Which I didn't think that was a fucking option, but it was like, like, we're not going to allow you to do this, like, finish college and come back in as an 18 alpha. So, I finished college, I put my application back in. Now, this is fucking funny, because when I left SF, it was like, hey man, when you come back in as an 18 alpha, it's just a formality. Like, don't worry about it. It's fucking, everything's cool. Come back in. Okay, so 9/11 happens, and there's a picture of a fucking SF dude, like on a horse with a beard, and every fucking Walter Mitty type motherfucker and officer out there decided he was Special Forces material at that time, right? So, I go back into SF, and they got like 200% fucking what they need officers, and they told us, man, don't get hurt while you're here, because we're not recycling any of you. Like, you sprain an ankle and you are fucking gone. And I had this vision in my head of, like, getting sent back to the infantry, like, and then being like a Bradley company commander in Korea or something, and having a stack of fucking Article 15s on my desk every Friday, like having my fucking UCMJ Friday. It is like this life of misery that I've like voluntarily left SF when the door closed, and like, go fuck yourself. This is what you're doing for the rest of your life. So, and I'm like, this is just a nightmare.
Let's
so,
forward a little bit
and also, like, coming back in, I need like a double waiver, because I'm fucking deaf, so they're like, hey man, like, we got enough guys, and you're hearing shitty, and like all this, and I'm like, yeah, this is fucking terrible. Like, I hope I get back in.
And you're hearing shitty because.
But I got back in.
Oh, sorry. I was saying you're hearing shitty because you were an 18 Bravo.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Anti-tank systems. The Carl Gustav, the 90, the 106. All that shit, man. So I gotta tell you, the AT systems are the worst, man. Any weapon that comes with a, like, don't shoot this more than 5 times a day because it'll fuck your internal organs up, it's probably not good for your ears. And you can double muff, man. I mean, I wear fucking foamies with some muffs over them, and that only goes so far. So I started to lose my hearing by the time I was, I don't know, probably 25. And when I was a little later in my career, man, they'd give me the clicker test, right? You take the clicker test, and then pretty soon by the third test, I'm sitting in a room with like nothing in it, and they're like, you don't have to touch anything. And there's a big sign on the fucking wall that talks about like the UCMJ penalty for malingering. And the machine's just like automatically measuring your tympanic membrane response to sound and shit. And then, the first time I did that, the guy came in and was like, wow, you really are deaf. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, man.
So, Mike, you get back into Special Forces.
I'm not trying to fake it for like 10% disability,
Mike,
motherfucker.
let's start getting into, war on terror. You're in first group. You make it back in as an officer. But now, since you're in first group, you're focused on, the Philippines, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I spent all the 90s focused on Thailand, and then the 21st century was all about the Philippines, war on terror. So I get back in the first group. I got the sniper troop. So I'm going through the Q course. and the branch manager calls me and goes, "Hey, man, so you're a SOTIC grad, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, I was a SOTIC instructor for a year, And he was like, "Excellent. How would you like to get a sniper team out in Okinawa?" And I was like, "Perfect. Again, this is my background, man. This is what I'm for. Like, this couldn't be a better job." And he's like, "Cool. We need you to get a Sephardic assignment while you're at Bragg." So I had to go finagle a Sephardic assignment, the fucking holy grail of schools. I had to go get a Sephardic assignment as a pipeline student. And man, I had to fucking go talk to some people. I had to go talk to all kinds of people about, why the fuck do you think you deserve a slot out of all these people? I'd go in and I was like, well, I was a sniper instructor and I shot 3-gun competitively and fucking, I was a weapons guy for so many years. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. That's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like you go to Sephardic. So, I got a Sephardic slot as a pipeline student. They had to let me go for the last 2 days of Sephardic, which is just basically brass cleanup. They had to cut me loose 2 days early so I could go to fucking SEER, which is great. You go from like beating ass to like getting your ass beat. Right. So I did Sephardic. I went out. I got a sniper troop. That was my first assignment. I was real happy with that because again, that was where I needed to be. I was working in the Philippines, war on terror. That was fucking awesome. Most of the time I was up in Luzon, initially doing 7-8 training, again, night patrols, patrolling under NVGs, all that shit with the, we were growing the light reaction company to the light reaction battalion, which would then later become the light reaction regiment. So at the time we were expanding it from the LRC to the LRB.
Real quick, just to catch people up. So SOTIC is Special Operations Target Interdiction course. It's basically...
It's now the Special Forces Sniper course, and the reason they changed the name was because after War on Terror, you had all this fucking government funding coming down for sniper training, and SOTIC was missing all of it because we didn't have sniper in the name. We were the Special Operations Target Interdiction course. Right. So basically, to get access to funding, we changed the name to the Special Forces Sniper course.
And it's funny because originally it didn't have sniper in it to sort of conceal a little bit what it actually
the same thing with Sephardic, like that ridiculous acronym.
Yeah, same thing with Sephardic. It's like, here's some alphabet soup, so you don't know what the fuck it is.
Yeah.
And Sephardic at the time was basically like the CQB training.
Yeah, it still is.
Yeah, the close quarter battle. So I just wanted to catch up to the people who may not be familiar with these terms, but the SOTIC and then Sephardic. And then you went
to the Philippines, expanding the LRC to the LRB.
Yep. So, like I said, initially it was a lot of time up in Luzon. I was up in Cabanatuan. It was mostly night patrolling. That was great. Like, again, one of my funny moments was one of the guys I'd gotten into the Bravo course wound up working for me because he was working at the embassy. We had 2 captains in the Philippines, and one of them's working at the embassy and he's wearing a tie, and then the other one's me and I'm not wearing a tie because, I'm not the fucking... I'm not that guy. I would far rather be out there getting, night patrols in and bit by fire ants and shit than sitting in an embassy in Manila wearing a tie every day. But one of my old guys came to work for me because he got in a fight. He got in a fight in the Arab Quarter. He was going down to see his sex worker girlfriend, and he got hit upside the head with a pool stick. and he had this big fucking avulsion on his head. He had this big flap of skin and a triangle scar. So they're like, you can't work at the embassy like that. You look like shit. So they sent him out to me. So I had like my reunion week up in Cabanatuan, where one of the guys I'd been in the 18B course with, and that was awesome. But like I said, we're doing fucking light infantry shit, and then as we kind of grew the LRC and they decentralized, I went down to Cebu. We were starting to do decentralized operations for the first time. I went down to Cebu. I think that's probably the only good fucking capture out of that like whole time. We got the chief financial officer of, I think it was Abu Sayyaf. It was one of the bigger fucking insurgencies down there. We grabbed their main money man. He was eating at a fucking sidewalk cafe, and we rolled his ass up. And it was like the most hasty fucking planning ever, because it's like, hey man, we gotta call this dude's like fucking eating at a sidewalk cafe. It was like, get in the fucking van, man. Like, just grab some basic shit and get in the fucking van. We're rolling on this dude, and we got that guy. And that was cool. And then I went down to Mindanao, and I was out in Davao, back when Duterte was still the mayor out there, and we were doing operations out in Davao, and that was fucking nice. I think some of the best things I ever did in SF were on that trip. I fucking paid for a kid's heart operation. That was cool. That was because, the bodyguard I had from the LRC, he was some dude who'd come in on an amnesty program. So this guy was a former insurgent, and his whole thing was basically like working with a woman, and they'd like peel some fucking soldier cop off and kill him in a hotel room. And, this guy's my bodyguard. So, I was trying to figure out ways to kind of cement alliances and stuff. And his brother, who was a really nice fucking dude, his brother had a baby with a heart valve defect. He had a blue baby, and the way it works in the Philippines is if you don't have the hospital money there, I'm going to see you. So, I paid like $5K to get that kid's heart fixed. And after that, I was his godfather, and I didn't have any worries about anything, like in that fucking part of town ever again. So that was good. And, like I said, always good to work in Duterte's backyard, and the dude becomes president. And that's the other thing I wanted to throw in about SF. That was one of the things they emphasized with me coming up was, that Thai lieutenant you're working with may be the fucking king of Thailand one of these days. So, like, maintain personal relationships with these people you work with, like, especially the who's who type people. And I thought that was kind of interesting, like later down the road when it's like, I'm fucking out of, going to the cockfight to fucking meet Duterte and shit, stuff like that. So, I did the Philippines for a couple of years. The CIF was supposed to go into Iraq in 2005, and the PACOM commander was like, no, I'm keeping the CIF, which was the problem with the CIFs is they're the only unit that's like directly fucking taskable by the COCOMs. So,
right.
The COCOM doesn't want to give you up. That was that's why, like, when, at the time you'd see these things about how, we're going to bring the CIFs back to CONUS, which, if you understand, like, the way a CIF's supposed to work, that makes no sense whatsoever. But, that whole thing was basically
just to, like,
the COCOM commanders to kind of work.
Just to interject briefly here, like, some folks probably don't understand the CIF. It's the Commanders in Extremis Force. Every Special Forces group has a CIF, or did, up until very recently. And the idea was that we had, 7th group had a CIF down in Panama, 1st group had a CIF in Okinawa, 10th group had a CIF in Germany. And these were counterterrorism or direct action elements that could be tasked out by the theater commands, European Command, Southern Command, PACOM, whoever it is, to immediately go and action a threat. So if a hostage crisis breaks out in Thailand or Guatemala or wherever, they can shoot that element, they can shoot the CIF out very quickly, and if need be, they can resolve that situation, or they can lock down the area until JSOC arrives. Now, the concept, that was the concept, but of course it was fraught with problems, as you know, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we used to say it was the shiny object fucking syndrome. You make this bright shiny object, and it's so fucking awesome and cool that nobody wants to use it and get it dirty, and you put it on a shelf. And that was the big. That was the thing with the CIFs. It's like, hey man, you got this unit out in PACOM that, as far as I'm concerned, I got to the CIF. Shit, man, I had like 17 fucking years in. Your average CIF guy had 18 years military service. So I got out there and I'm like, yeah, here's this incredible unit, and nobody wants to fucking let it go do anything because then I won't have one. It's so, like I said, we were supposed to rotate into Iraq in 2005, and, I was following everything pretty closely. I'm looking at all the AR notes that are coming out of snipers because I'm a sniper troop commander and I want to know what I'm going to be fucking doing. And then, no, you're not going. And then 2006, same thing. Hey, you're on the rotation. And then, nope, last minute, no. And then 2007, we replicated a CIF. We built a second CIF. And that was solely for the purpose of allowing ourselves to fucking go into theater. So 2005 and 2006, I was a sniper troop commander. And then 2007, when we did our rotation, I was the XO. And I got to be the XO for the first rotation of the PACOM CIF into CENTCOM. That was a lot of heavy lifting, and again, I've said it before, and I'll say it quite plainly. I thought Iraq was bullshit, but at the same time, just in terms of heavy lifting and logistical efforts, getting the PACOM CIF into fucking Iraq was no joke, man, and I was kind of happy to be part of that. And I wanted to go to Iraq. I mean, I want to see shit for myself. I can think something's bullshit, and it doesn't mean it affects my performance. It doesn't mean I don't want to fucking go get eyes on personally, because I don't like to take anybody's word on anything. I want to see it, man. I want to fucking see it for myself.
So, what was that mission? How did it play out when you got there with the CIF?
So when I did the leaders recon, in February. It was still, I think, Task Force 16 and 17 at the time, so that was February 2007, and you still had that task force structure, and they were breaking it out. Like, one was doing counter Al Qaeda, and one was doing counter Iranian influence. When I came out, they had just restructured, and basically the way it wound up working out for us was we took the CIF with the command element, with the C2 element, and that became an AOB, and it became its own task force, and then we broke an assault troop and part of the sniper troop out, and they went and became basically a body pool for B Squadron Delta. And then that was something, again, that kind of surprised me, was that Delta was using our guys for what they consider high-risk raids. Delta was using our guys for things where they thought they'd sustain a lot of casualties, because you can create a CIF assaulter a lot quicker than you can create a fucking Delta guy. So, it's one of those like, hey man, after C Squadron took X amount of casualties, they decided that we're going to use the CIF guys to do stuff, and we're going to change things and do more call-outs, call-outs are like the old fucking gangster movies with the cops out there. Come on out, Clancy, come on out, Clancy, or, through the megaphone, and if Clancy doesn't come out, you just fucking kill his ass.
I think it was like 2004, C Squadron of Delta took like shitloads of casualties. I can't remember if it was like 60 or 70% casualties. A lot of them,
60 was what I heard.
Yeah.
That was C Squadron, I believe, and that was a game changer. That changed the way everybody did business. Right. And I get it, but it was just one of those things. Like, I tried out for Delta once when I was enlisted, and I tried out for Delta twice when I was an officer, and I'm like getting on the ground and realizing that while you're using our guys to do shit that you don't want to do, that was kind of an eye-opener, It's like, and the fucking funny thing was, before I left for that trip, I knew the recruiter. I knew him way back from first group, and he was like, dude, I didn't see your name on the list this year. And I was like, well, I'm going to Iraq, and I'm working with some of your guys, and I figure after that I'll, make my make my next attempt. And he's like, oh yeah, that's good. That's a, good strategy. But I gotta tell you, man, after going over there and like running up against B Squadron, and like I said, B Squadron's fucking Ranger alumni. B Squadron's some straight up, like, if you don't have the tab, hit the fucking slab, except with OTC. After running up against B Squadron, I'm like, man, if I want to go work with a bunch of like fucking roided up assaulters, I can just go downstairs, like in Okinawa, like I don't have to move, man. I got that shit. I have that available to me. That's one of those things. The snipers were upstairs and the fucking assaulters were downstairs in Okinawa. That's why I say that, but like I said, going over there and just getting the whole, like, hey, if you're in our gym and, like, 3 of us fucking come into the gym, you need to leave, and you can't maneuver on our range if you're not an OTC grad. And it's like, well, I did go to this school called Sephardic, and it was like, yeah, we don't, that doesn't matter. Who cares? Like, it's OTC or fucking nothing around here, Jack, so that was different. But yeah, so they took half of us without the headquarters and assigned them to B Squadron, and then we got the ICTF, the whole ISOF brigade. And I'm going to tell you about my first night in Iraq, and I don't remember if it was my first night on my leaders recon or if it was my first night over there. I don't fucking remember, but it was the first night I remember. And the guy I replaced was so we replaced 5th Group. And the guy I replaced, I'd gone to IOBC with, and he'd gone and done his infantry time, and then gone out to Ranger Bat, and then he'd gone to 5th Group. And he had like 5 combat tours by the time I ran into him. And I remember the guy from IOBC, and he was a nice young guy. Everybody in IOBC was younger than me. I'm an OCS guy, so everybody's at least like 7 years younger than me. And I remember from IOBC, nice guy, nice fucking smart guy, and his dad was like some Arthur C. Clarke type, he was out in fucking isolation, like working on his unified string theory or something, bright people, So I see this guy, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna go out, we're gonna do a fucking raid on the police station, because they like rolled up 2 of our guys, and they're not giving them back, so we're gonna go do a raid on a police station, So I'm like, cool. So we go out to probably like the nearest safe house to this fucking police station, and we get out of all the military vehicles, and we get into some Toyota Tacomas and shit, and this place is like it's eye shot from where they hanged Saddam, which was like maybe I think 8 weeks prior to that or something, and there's a team out there running a fucking safe house, and they're talking about like, yeah, we're gonna go out there to the prison this week and bribe the warden and get some pictures of us like looking through the fucking noose, and if you guys want to come out for that. And it's like, nah, that's cool, man, like I'm good. But so we get into the Tacomas, man, and we go through these routes, and later I found out these routes are all black, like nobody would travel these fucking routes, but we drive these Tacomas, and we go to this police station, and I use the term raid, and I guess I was, but it's not like a normal raid. I mean, we basically just went in like, yo motherfucker, like, where's our dudes, and we got our guys, and one of the guys is like, hey, yeah, there were like 4 women in the back, and they were looking pretty bad. They looked like they'd been, getting fucking gang raped for, the last week, so we just let them go. And, the Iraqis said there was some kind of like black fucking widow thing, and like nobody fucking, it was just, the whole police station thing was just shitty, man. I mean, it was tempting to just kill every fucking buddy. And, the worst thing about it was in the front room, there was like an American lieutenant, there was like an American lieutenant who looked like he was just oblivious to everything, some MP lieutenant. And I was like, Jesus, man, the future of Iraq is like me calling some fucking dude and being like, hey, man, my unit's going to do a raid on your unit tonight. Like, go to the bathroom at 10 o'clock or something,
Yeah, that is not far off at all.
Yeah. When you said that the police had when you said the police had your dudes, do you mean like your Iraqi counterpart, or the your Iraqis that work with you?
ICTF guys?
Yeah, so like 2 of the ICTF guys got waylaid at a checkpoint, and the cops decided to keep him. And at this time, we're not on good relations with the cops. The intel was like, hey, 90% of these police units are politically unreliable. They're fucking controlled by the insurgents, or so heavily infiltrated that they're worthless. So, the guy replaced was like, look, man, sometimes you'll pass a police checkpoint and you'll see the cell phone lights come out, and you'll see them, and you'll get down the road, and you'll hit a hasty ambush. And he's like, if that happens, just go back and fucking knock the cops' teeth out. Just fucking knock them all out. That's the SOP. And so anyway, we go to this police station, and like I said, there was like some fucking just sordid shit going on, and we got our guys. But here's the fucking weird part. Here's the weird part. My friend, my nice intellectual friend from IOVC, he was very adamant about, hey man, like when you get around these guys, don't talk at all. And I was like, okay, I don't know what this is about, but like, all right, cool, man. Like, I'm listening to the guy with the 5 combat tours in fucking Iraq. I'm listening to the 5th group guy because, this guy knows what he's talking about. So he's like, don't talk around these dudes, man. So we get our 2 guys. And they got, fucking hoods on them. And we put them in the back of a truck, and we transport them back to the safe house with the hoods on them. And, we take these guys off the truck, and my friend puts them on their fucking knees, man. And he's got them both on their knees, like fucking zip tied in hoods. And then he like whips the fucking hoods off, like he's doing a tablecloth trick, man. And he rips the fucking hoods off, and these guys think they're gonna get executed. Yeah. Okay. These guys think they're gonna get a bullet in the fucking grate, man. And he whips the fucking hoods off, and these guys are like, oh shit, man, like fuck, what the fuck, man, and he's like, and I'm like, what the fuck happened to you, dude? Like what? These 5 combat tours like did not fucking help you, man. Like this is fucking nuts, and I mean, I couldn't fucking believe it. I thought it was like one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen. And I mean, yeah, it's funny, but it's like also super fucked up. Like, holy shit, So that was my first night in fucking Iraq, man. The raid on the police station and the tablecloth trick, that was it. But like the 5th group guys knew their shit, they gave us some good pointers. They left things in our hand. We assumed control on April Fool's Day, which I think is pretty fucking hilarious. And then, the FOB commander told us he wanted 200 combat ops out of us. He wants 200. And I was like, why 200, and it's like, well, the last guys, like got 10% less than that. It was basically like, hey, if I get 200 out of you and 200 out of the guys who replace you, which was 3rd group, he was like, I'll have 400, and that's 10% more than the last guy, and that's what I want. And it was like,
yeah, I can put it on my officer eval.
Yeah, dude, it's all about the OER at that point. Yeah. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, fuck asking yourself whether any of this is working or not. Just do more of it. Just do 10% more of it. That's
typical Army logic. Like, if something's not working, deploy more troops.
Yeah, do more of it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Like get on it. So we were trying to do two a night. Generally you try to go out early enough. Where you had enough time to exploit the electronics, you seized on the objective, and time to do a second raid that night. So, you were trying to do stuff, after darkness. Like, we wound up doing 198 combat ops. Okay, we wound up doing 198 combat ops, and I want to say 3 of those were fucking daytime. Everything else was night. That was a big, like, look, man, these guys don't got MPGs, fucking do everything at night, because as soon as something comes up, everyone's going to be shooting at you.
I said total failure. You guys didn't get 200?
Yeah, we didn't get to 200, man. We suck. We fucking suck, man. But that, that was 120 days on the board, so that was pretty good. The goal was to do 2 a night every night. That was what we tried for. We wound up doing 198. And it's funny because you get these units that do 3 and 4 month rotations, and people badmouth them. What I gotta tell you, man, after fucking 4 months and 198 fucking combat ops, dudes were worn out, man. Yeah. So we got 198.
What was that cycle like? I mean, jocking up for multiple operations every period of darkness. I mean, it must have been. For C11 guys, these guys had never really been in the shit before because you're over tasked with Asia. Like now, it's on.
By day 10, like everybody got their cherry pop fucking good and proper. Yeah. That's all I can say is it's summer 2007, the surge and the counter surge, and it was just like, hey, yeah, let's roll out to some shit like over and over again.
Well, and the thing is, you guys weren't only doing the ops at night, but you were also responsible for training the ICTF during the daytime.
Not at that point. So when we got there, man, your average ICTF guy had 500-600 combat ops. So that's no shit, like 500 or 600 combat ops. Okay. These were not dudes we were training. These were guys we were basically keeping up with, and then the commandos were different. Like the ICTF guys were awesome. The ICTF guys were fucking incredible. The commandos were mostly guys who didn't make fucking the ICTF training, but their relatives had paid to get them into the unit, so they were over there, and we had a lot of problems with them in terms of not being politically reliable. Those are the guys you always have to take their fucking cell phones away from them before stuff, but we worked some of that out. But the ICTF guys were fucking great. We weren't, I've said this before, we weren't showing them shit, man. We were trying to keep up with them. Those guys fucking knew what they were doing. They were all about it, man. They were fucking awesome. I compare notes with my friends who did like Iraq assignments, and they make all the jokes about, Thursday we have a class on like not shitting on the parade field and stuff. And, I hear that, or I remember that lieutenant sitting at the police station, I didn't have that Iraq tour. I had awesome fucking dudes that were respectable, and I was paying attention. I was trying to learn from them, to be quite honest. And that was interesting too. And like I said, like Fadl was the unit commander at the time. He's dead now, but he was fucking awesome, and he ran fucking guns to the Kurds like once a month, and had all kinds of shady shit going on. But at least like his heart was in the right place, man. He was trying to hook his people up, and the Kurds were using the period of time to rearm and kind of like get their shit together. So he was going up to Erbil every month and trying to make sure like next time hostilities broke out that people were taken care of. A lot of the officers there were Kurdish. We deliberately tried to get guys who wouldn't get drawn into the sectarian schism. That included having a lot of Kurdish officers. All these dudes were like, Iraq war vets. They were fucking Desert Storm vets. Although, like I said, none of them would admit to. I'd go, fucking smoke hookah and drink fucking Tiger Energy drinks with these guys at night and talk to them, and they'd bring their shoebox full of Iraq war photos out. And these dudes would look like any fucking soldiers away from the flagpole anywhere ever. They'd have do-rags, they'd have bullet belts, this is like their fucking Polaroid from the Iran-Iraq war. It was interesting, and so that, like I said, first night Iraq, we had a few big missions. We had Havana. That was probably the biggest thing we did in terms of like prisoners taken. We took 27 prisoners that day. I think 8 of them were high value targets. They were all Al Qaeda. Havana was a village that we basically did a deliberate attack on, a daylight assault. The word was like everything in the fucking village was hostile. So this was the first time that we brought the ICTF out in its entirety, not with the commandos. I'm not talking about the ISOP brigade. Now I'm talking about the ICTF. So as far as I understand, this was the first time the ICTF had fought as like an entire task force all at once. And this was about June 12, 2007, and we hit this fucking town and just spent the whole day going through this town during the daylight, and took 27 prisoners. And man, I had the support by fire, and this was my daylight, assault in Iraq. I got the support by fire, and I remember hitting the fucking ground on the helicopter and going into a full sprint, and I had all my assault kit, and I had a fucking rucksack with like 3 thermobaric laws and like, I don't know, maybe 600 rounds of 7.62 ammunition for the machine guns. And Sosha was with me. He's the fucking 210 sergeant major. He decided to come out. This is the CSM. He decided to come out with us, and solid fucking dude, man. Solid. He was amazing that day. So I'm hitting the ground. It's like fucking dawn. This is like my one daytime op. I'm sprinting to the support by fire position because, I got the assault coming in and I want to get things set up. And I'm fucking sprinting, and it's daytime, and I got all this shit, and it's fucking hot. It's like a fucking 170 fucking degrees, and everything's getting sparkly. And I remember thinking, I should have done more cardio. I remember thinking that, because when I went over to Iraq, everyone's like, hey man, you're going to get in way more like physical fights than like gunfights. You're going to be in people's apartments. They're not going to want to come with you. You're going to be like fucking throwing down with motherfuckers, like go over there and be intimidating. And I went over at like 220. All I was doing was like powerlifting and boxing, so, I'm all bulked up, and I just remember running under all that shit and thinking, God damn, man, I should have done more cardio. And then I look back, and there's like everybody like all straggled back, like way back, and I'm like, okay, it's not just me. And then the fucking, I could hear the mortars start firing. I could hear the insurgents start dropping fucking rounds down the tubes. And I was like, God, it's all getting better. It's just all starting getting better, And we got a support by fire set up, and most of the rest of the morning was uneventful, and then that turned into like the collection point for like women and children. And so as the day goes on, pretty soon I got literally like 40 women with kids out, sitting by the support by fire, and they're all crying. All these kids are crying, man. It was like Steer School, where they lock you in a fucking box, and you gotta listen to like kids crying. We're fucking, dude, listening to kids crying, and I'm just like, fuck, man. I wish I could do anything to these fucking kids, because I gotta tell you, I ain't got no fucking hate for anybody's family, like I'll go into a dude's house and fucking put him in a hood and some fucking zip ties and drag his ass out. I ain't got no fucking grievance against his wife and kids, man. The same in this situation. Like, I felt bad for the fucking kids, and I told that story to my 10th group buddy once, and he said, you fucking rookie, he goes, you gotta bring a bag of Tootsie Pops. Well, he goes, you give a Tootsie Pop to the fucking kids. He goes, that's why they keep them in like doctor's offices. You give a Tootsie Pop to the kids, and it gives them something to put in their mouth, and they quiet down, and then, the moms tend to be a little friendlier to you, and sometimes they'll tell you shit like, we don't like that guy either, he fucking beats us, and, like, you look over there, there's a fucking arms cache or something. But yeah, that day sucked. And then, Jesus, just even getting out of there, it turned into a fucking nightmare. It was, I forgot what kind of helicopters they were, but like where you get the big rotor wash, you get like the massive rotor wash that will almost like pick you up and fucking lift you. And they sat down, and it's like any other place that's flat in fucking Iraq. It's muddy. So these helicopters came to exfil us, and it's like these mud flats. And everybody's crawling, and I mean literally crawling through this mud. And it reminded me of like this, the Marines had an obstacle course in Hawaii that was like that. It was like crawling through peanut butter, and so everyone's crawling through this peanut butter like on their bellies trying to get to the fucking birds, because they can't stand up. And this is at the end of the day. This is after like literally like we've done a fucking dawn to dusk assault on this fucking town, and everybody's worn the fuck out.
Yeah.
And, droning and weird, and you're trying, like crawling through the fucking mud, and like, oh, look, here's a law rocket. Somebody fucking left a law rocket in the fucking mud, man. And here's a belt of machine gun ammunition, that got left in the fucking mud. And it was like finding treasure in the fucking mud on the way. And I'm the so, dude. I'm like, this is a fucking nightmare. I got to get back in inventory. This is terrible. And we finally got on the birds and like literally on the birds watching guys just all laying on their backs, like doing the dying cockroach, like, everybody's fucked up, nobody's eating, everybody's worn out and probably like borderline fucking heat injury. And there was Sosha, man. Sosha was like the only dude still on his feet, and he was, he's a credible dude, man. And like I liked him, and cancer fucking killed him a couple of years later, and that sucks. Because, goddamn, man, if you want to fucking, I guess, find out what somebody's about, go, be under fire with them and have a shitty day with them,
Any other?
So that was.
Particular operations from that time period that like stand out in your mind?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, that was one. That was Havana, and that was just because of the fucking prisoner count we took. There was one that I thought was hilariously funny because we had a guy coming in from Iran, and he was like I said, these were all HVTs, man. Most of these guys were, they were low teens or single digits. So, we were talking about like, hey, I'm going to go get like the number 8 guy or the fucking number 13 guy or whatever. This guy was one of the bigger dudes, and he was coming in from Iran, and he was coming into the civilian side of BIOP. And the idea was we were going to have guys go out there dressed as his PSD, like roll as PSD and dress as his PSD and get him when he came off the plane. And this thing, he got delayed, and like this mission got scrubbed and got scrubbed and got scrubbed. And I remember like day 4 coming down because, I got like the swing shift fucking sleep schedule, And I remember coming down to breakfast one day, and I was like, hey man, that fucking mission ever, or one of the guys offered me, he offered me like some fucking baked goods. It was, not a cookie, but like some like baklava type shit, right? And I remember eating like this baklava on our little DFAC, and I was like, that fucking mission ever go last night? He goes, yeah, sir, you're eating his fucking baked goods like he was bringing back from Iran. That was like the gift for his life. So that was good. That was probably like the feel-good mission of the whole thing, And then, like my big one, I got to take the brigade out. That was like, I guess that's supposed to be the big feather in my military cap.
Let's talk about that next, Mike. I want to hear about that. I'm going to hit up a couple of user questions first before we roll into it. Richard, thank you. SFN says Mike rules. Thank you. Brent post hoc ergo propter hoc says good vibes only. Cheers, gents. Scrolling down here, scrolling down.
His daughter was in the chat.
His daughter is in the chat?
Emma.
Your daughter is in the chat, Mike.
I'm trying to keep it PG, man.
I know.
Trying to keep it a little PG-13 today.
Alejandro says Ranger School 1993 was this when there was still 4 phases. Desert phase was still around, right?
Yeah.
So you went through the last hard class?
The last hard.
Oh yeah, totally the last hard class, man. Desert phase rocks, and if you didn't get it, like, you're hurting, man. Sorry.
I was gonna say, when you were talking about showing up to Ranger School emaciated, that's basically how you train for Ranger School, is to starve yourself.
Everybody told me you got to go to Steak and Ale or fucking, Steak and Shake or whatever, like every day before. You got to go in with the extra 20 so you can lose the 20.
Pat yourself up, yeah.
I agree with that approach. Alejandro says, being in the CIF, did you ever help bros out by accepting dirty TA-50 or with missing items? Kidding. Great episode.
Yes, I did everything in my power to make sure nothing got rejected because it had red clay on it.
So this is an inside military or army joke, because CIF also stands for Central Issue Facility, which is where you get all of your gear from. And when you transfer units or when you leave the army, you have to take all they have to sign off that you returned all your gear before you can actually get out. And like, some of the people if there's a speck of dust on it, like it has to be cleaner than when you got it, basically.
Yeah.
Or they send you back to go clean it again.
So, guys, if you have questions for Mike, get them in. Otherwise, Mike, go ahead. Please continue the story about the brigade-sized operation that you ran.
Yeah.
Mike,
so,
go ahead.
Like I said, man, that was a July 4th raid. That was supposed to be the 4th of July raid.
That's cool.
And like being given a 4th of July raid, I felt like I'd won some, I don't know, like All-American Boy Prize or something. Like I'm gonna go do a fucking raid on the 4th of July. And I think technically it became the 5th of July just because of the timelines. But so this was like the big fucking shakeout for the ISOP brigade. As I understand, as I was told, this was the first time that brigade had operated as a brigade. We took the whole fucking show on the road, commandos, everybody, and the idea was what we figured out was that to take out most of our missions were aimed at IED manufacture. Most of our missions were actually aimed at VBIED manufacture car bombs. We did whole car bomb factories where there were like 26 fucking cars in line, stuff like that. So we figured out that, look, man, if you hit an IED cell, you have to take the whole cell out, because if you leave part of the cell, that cell can replicate. These guys can train replacements for the guys you took. So you have to take the whole cell at once. And, extending that to networks and like, hey, take a whole network out, do an entire network at once. That was kind of, like I said, that's what we were trying to do on July 4th, 2007. So we went and hit an ID network. I was given 24 hours to plan fucking, goddamn internet's going out.
Yeah. It's all right. It'll catch back up.
You guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, went to hit a whole IED network, and we went in. It was like a vehicle drop off, which was good, because when we did Havana and we just had the ICTF, the lift part of it was insane, because you've got night aviation assets assigned to you, but you need extra assets, so you got daylight aviation, and now you're taking guys off their normal sleep cycle. So you've got intermingled aviation assets, and it was literally tight to the point of, look, if you go to fucking hover for 5 minutes, you're gonna have to start refueling people, and it was fucking nuts. So like, doing the fucking air sync matrix for task force size stuff is fucking nuts, man. So this was like a VDO, which is good, because this was literally an entire brigade. And we did a brigade raid. It was 3 simultaneous strikes in 3 different neighborhoods in Baghdad. It was, I want to say, 8 high-value targets and 10 persons of interest, and I think it was maybe 10 structures total. But going out and doing like a brigade hit where, you got comm issues, because some of the technology interoperability issues we had at the time, it was fucking nuts, man. So we went out and hit these 3 fucking different targets, and that was a good night for me in some ways. Like, for me it was mostly going up a fucking stairwell, again, it's one of those things where like all the work went into the planning and all that, and then like once shit starts to unfold, my job is pretty simple. It's just to maintain comms up and down and be the manager of violence, as I think one of the authors called being an SF officer. I'm the manager of violence. But for me, it was going up like a stairwell with a couple of 18 echoes, and then pulling security while they get comms up, and then, like I said, just directing traffic after that. And it was a good night for me, and that I put a dot on a dude's chest, and, this time, if you're like reaching under a fucking mattress or reaching into a dresser drawer, like you have discretion to shoot a person, so I'm up on a rooftop and I'm like watching some dude, and everyone's sleeping on the roofs because it's fucking summer, and he went under his fucking mat, and I remember like, watching that dude and thinking, you know, if he comes out with a weapon in his hand, I'm going to drop him, but not like until then. And he didn't. He fucking, I don't know what he was doing. I don't fucking give a fuck what he was doing. But he didn't come out with a weapon, and I was really glad I didn't shoot him. And, you know, like, he went back to bed, and I sometimes would think about that dude when I was depressed. And I'd be like, I hope he's doing something good with himself, you know, like cancer or something. Who fucking knows. But, you know, so I was up on the roof, and then, you know, things went down, and I went back down, and, man, so the bomb maker, the main guy we were going to get, he was bald. He was bald, and, I went back down, and I remember my guys were, like, I had 2 guys putting fucking tasers to his head, and they were saying, Happy 4th of July, motherfucker, you know, and that was, you know, that was my fucking, my mistake, because I said some dumb shit about the 4th of July and, you know, killing people being special on our nation's birthday. And I gotta tell you, man, like, as a leader, like, be careful what you say to your fucking guys, because, you know, things tend to, you're setting the tone, man.
Right.
You're setting the tone for your fucking unit. So, don't fucking chest thump, don't posture. There's really no good reason to do that. And, you know, if you know, like I said, man, I own all my bullshit, I own all my fucking mistakes, and all I can say, I was probably a little bit fucking nervous about leading a brigade, because I've never led a brigade in combat. That was like new for me. So, you know, I may have done a little chest thumping in my, you know, like, warm up pre-game speech. And again, that's like life lessons. Don't do that. So yeah, I walked into the Happy 4th of July, motherfucker, and dudes were putting tasers on the guy's head, and I remember just being like, you know, all right, Clockwork Orange, let's, you know, fucking wrap it up and get out of here. And leaving, and like I said, things went pretty well, and, you know, I got, you know, a few high value targets off the objective that night, and like I said, things went smoothly, other than the, you know, the fucking tasers to the head thing, which those things came into play a lot during technical questioning, and, you know, I think about that a lot when I'm online and I'm discussing morality, and, you know, it's like, hey man, yes, we were definitely like putting tasers on people's ball sacks and shit like that on occasion, but, you know, like, you know, while that is probably not ethically sound, I guess my standard was always don't ever do anything to another human being they can't walk away from.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, like I said, man, and the environment at the time, I mean, my average fucking day in Iraq was going into the detention facility and seeing people in stress positions, because we had our own detention facility and we could keep guys for 48 hours and another 24 hours if we wrote a fucking paragraph explaining why we needed to keep them. So my average day was going into a fucking detention facility and seeing people in hoods and stress positions, and then policing up the weapons that were seized, and then filing a gray arms report with the Defense Intelligence Agency, and then if I had anything that I thought would contribute to one of the CIA programs, because they had a fucking defeat program going at the time, I'd set stuff aside for them. And you know, but goddamn, man, I mean, like, the environment at the time was just brutal. You know, it's fucking summer of 07, and it was just fucking brutal, and, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you're trying not to let it get out of hand, but at the same time, I mean, shit, man, every night, every fucking morning I'm talking to Jag, because we'd bring the Iraqi prisoners in, and the ICTF guys would just beat the shit out of them the whole way back. So every morning I'm like showing up, and these guys are beat the fuck up in their photos, and I got the Jag asking me at 8 o'clock to resubmit shooter statements, because they all look cut and paste, and everybody looks beat to shit, and it's like, yeah, they're beat to shit, man. Like, you know, sorry, nobody wants to get on the Humvee with us, and then once they do, like, you know, the Iraqis got them, and like they taught me in the Q course, they're host nation forces, man. I don't give them orders. They fucking don't work for me. I can tell them, hey, like, maybe don't do that, and, you know, report to higher, and that's about it. But, like, it's the nature of the beast, man. I'm not apologizing for it, and I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying that's how things were in the summer 2007.
And the challenge is that when special forces or other elements are working with these host nation units, and you don't have real authority over them, and they do something egregious and it gets out, then it comes back on you that you're training these death squads and these torture teams and things like that, when often you have very little control over what they do.
And that's all supposed to be like hashed out through the Leahy Amendment, that they're supposed to vet these units, and if they're doing shit that they're not supposed to be doing, then maybe our government is supposed to pull back from it, but they don't. But again, political reasons.
Dave, Jack, I gotta pee.
Yep.
Go for it, Mike. Guys, thank you for joining us again tonight. Mike's got to take a quick piss break, which is awesome. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And let me hit you guys up with next week. Next week's episode will be 192. We're going to have Nick Brockhausen and Jeff Miller back on the show. They are both Special Forces veterans. Nick Brockhausen served in MACV-SOG, and he wrote a couple of the books here that are behind us. What do we got? Whispers in the Tall Grass, that's one of his, and We Few is the other. But Jeff and Nick have a new book coming out called Vagabonds, and it's about their post-Vietnam, post-military service as mercenaries, if you will.
Paramilitary contractors, right?
Paramilitary doing interesting things all around the world and getting into a fair amount of trouble. So those guys are very colorful, to say the least.
A good time.
A very good time.
Yeah.
And we'll have those gentlemen on the show next week. I'm looking forward to that. If you have any questions I know a few of you have gotten them in. If you have any questions for Mike that you'd like me to ask him, jump in there. Otherwise,
Dave D wants to know how much he has to donate to hear you sing the Ballad of the Green Beret.
$100. That's the minimum, $100.
Do you know the whole thing?
Hell no, of course I don't. I'll have to read it. And if you donate $1,000, I will sing the entire score of the HMS Pinafore.
In a Speedo.
You're volunteering too much here, Dave. You're volunteering too much. I might need to use the bullshit.
Hey, also, just a reminder, we have a lot of guests lined up for the next 3 months out, but for episode 100, we're going to try to throw a rager right here in the studio for all of our local guests, or previous guests who live locally.
Yes.
It'll probably just be a big drunken bullshit session. So.
All right, Mike, here's a question from a viewer. He says, did you ever serve with my cousin, Colonel Mike Cavanaugh? He commanded a battalion in 1st Group and Detachment K.
No, I don't think so. Okay. I only remember one Cavanaugh. He was an enlisted dude with me back in like '92.
All right. Any concluding thoughts about the Iraq deployment, or anything else you want to bring up?
Shit, man. There's all kinds of stuff I can tell you about the Iraq deployment.
I bet.
I'm trying to keep it on a somewhat lighter note tonight, just because, like I said, I've got a mixed audience. So I'm keeping it PG-13 for some things. I will tell you a funny story though. I brought a suit to Iraq. I brought a suit to Iraq because like when I was enlisted, it was like, hey man, never go anywhere without a set of civilian clothes, and as an officer, it was like, hey, never go anywhere without a suit. And when I was deploying, because we deployed under 10th Group, they jatted us. They jatted us. Those fucking pricks jatted us. So I actually had to take my guys from fucking Okinawa, Japan, and fly them out to Fort Carson, Colorado, so I could fly from Carson, Colorado to Iraq, because, at some point some Air Force dude called some S3 at fucking 210, and the guy was like, oh yeah, I got X number of people, and didn't bother to look at the fact that some of us were in fucking Japan. So, the rule about JAD is don't be late and don't be light, right? So now I got to deploy to Colorado to go to Iraq. So when we got to Colorado, like I said, I brought a fucking suit with me, man, and the 10th Group guys, the entire fucking way, when we were unloading the plane, I was up in the fucking belly of the plane unloading because some dick put me on baggage handling detail, and I can hear every motherfucker, you know, on this like fire brigade ant trail being like, who the fuck brought a suit? What kind of a dumb fucking new guy, rookie motherfucker brings a suit to Iraq? You know, like, what the fuck, man? You know, so I'm over in Iraq for a couple of months, and they're like, hey, any officers bring a suit? we got an escort officer detailed to bring the Iraqi officers over to UAE for a terror symposium, and it's the first time they've been invited since they invaded Kuwait. So I was like, I have a suit. You know? And it's like, hey, do you want us to clean out the mini bar in your room before you show up? Since, you know, you're on general order number 1. And it's like, no. leave the fucking minibar. I'll be on the honor system. So I got to go to UAE. I got to go to Abu Dhabi with 4 Iraqi officers, and you know, fucking talk falconry with NBC and shit, and it was cool. It was a pretty fucking awesome little side quest from my Iraq deployment, and as it turned out, the event coordinator for NBC was Charlie Wilson's daughter, one of his
really?
stepdaughters, actually, and that's my Charlie Wilson connection. That's you know, so like later down the road, Charlie Wilson actually invited me to Vegas to the opening night of Charlie Wilson's War, which I turned down, much to my regret, and I will regret that to the end of my fucking days. But you know, there you go. Bring a suit, bring a set of civilian clothes.
For the bonus segment, I'd like to talk to you. You know, after we finish here, I'd like to talk to you for the bonus segment, if I can keep you a little bit longer, about Afghanistan and your deployment there. But to kind of start wrapping up this episode a little bit, Jim G asks, "What is Mike doing now? Does he miss the adventure?" And so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about, you know, your kind of post-service career and where you're at today.
Oh, sure, man. First of all, like, do I miss the adventure? Yeah. Also, as every one of my friends told me, when it's time for you to go, you'll know it. And my last... Shit, man. The last part of my career was being by name requested through branch. By name requested. I got by name requested 3 times. And then I got asked to come back from Afghanistan, and I asked to extend, and General Miller asked me to extend. And when I got back to brag and was like, what the fuck was the hurry, they gave me a statue dedication ceremony to manage for Carolyn Kennedy. And that same week, I think I wound up arguing with Mulholland up at USASOC, General Mulholland, because he was shutting down some courses to fund some other courses, and I had some differences of opinion with him about it. But long story short, I knew it was time for me to fucking go, and I went, and I have no regrets about that. These days, you know, Jesus, man, I try to be a pillar of my community, as corny as that sounds. You know, pre-pandemic, I was spending a day a week volunteering at a food bank, and you know, I try to fucking sugar up the local homeless shelter and the women's shelter, and you know, in the winter, I pack fucking survival backpacks for the homeless population around the Detroit area and stuff like that. It's you know, frankly, you know, I think I do better personally when I'm trying to look after other people. So I try to incorporate some of that into my life in terms of, you know, service to community, where I used to find purpose and service to my nation. Now I find purpose and service to my community.
Mike, do you have a nonprofit or a charity or anything you'd like to plug right now?
No, I usually tell people, you know, look after your community, man. Like, you know, again, there's homeless shelters, there's women's shelters, there's food banks, and frankly, you know, I think as a nation we have too many people in prison, so there's prison reform to look at. I, you know, for the land of the free, we seem to be somewhat of a carceral state, and I think we can do better about that. I think there's, better ways to handle that. I think we should look at some of the best practices of other nations and think about adopting them, and maybe not be so intent on punishment, and maybe be a little more focused on rehabilitation. That's, but no. Knowles is always good. Knowles is good. National Outdoor Leadership Schools, they do a lot of first aid and search and rescue stuff. They're, if you want to sugar somebody up, give to Knowles. I put my kids through their wilderness first aid courses. I put my kids' friends through the wilderness first aid courses. I put my friends' kids through wilderness first aid courses. These courses teach kids to fucking work through a crisis and look out for other people, and they give them practical skills. And I think, frankly, that's a pretty good foundation to lay in a kid,
I actually wanted to, when we were talking about it, I wanted to ask you this, but, you had a rebellious childhood, and, and then when you became, like, the platoon leader of light infantry platoon, 25th ID out in Hawaii, was that it? And you had these kids with, different challenges. Do you think that really, because I think you probably gave them more attention and more support than what people typically associate a PL with giving his soldiers. Do you feel as though your childhood and your sort of rebellious upbringing and knowing that you sort of course corrected gave you the insight to help these kids out and to be patient with them?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, some people didn't have much of a chance to start with, and I think you should absolutely, try to develop those people as much as possible. Like I said, my challenge as an infantry platoon leader is at a certain point, if you pose a hazard to the other 40 people, if you're somebody I can't trust with live ammunition or grenades, I need to get rid of you. I'm sorry. That's my role. I'm still in the force protection fucking line of work. I still have to look after the collective. But goddamn, man. Some people need some work, and there's quite a few people like. My fucking team sergeant choking my ass out to go to college. It's a pretty extreme example, but goddamn, man, if that guy hadn't given me a little bit of fucking extra attention and told me to go further myself from an education perspective, things probably would have turned out way different for me. And frankly, like I said, college was great, man. I never expected that. I didn't think I'd get anything good out of that.
Do you think that one of the challenges in military leadership sometimes is that leaders, whether they're NCOs or officers, treat their soldiers like resources instead of humans?
Right.
I always told my guys, look at your soldiers as a 20-year investment. Think of your soldiers as a 20-year investment, always. If I could go back and revise that at this point in my life, I'd say think of your soldiers as a lifetime investment. Because it's not just the 20 years, it's the values they're going to leave the military with, it's the values they're going to reassimilate into society with. You should absolutely look at your people as a long-term investment. One of the biggest problems I saw in the military was you get leaders come in and they got 12 to 24 months. They want to maximize their performance for 12 to 24 months. They will ride their fucking people hard and put them away wet. And one of the challenges of leadership is saying, look, man, I need to groom my performers. I can't spend all my time, working on my non-performers. I need to find my strong people, and I need to make sure they go to the right schools. I need to get them into the right career positions at the right time. I need to identify my future leaders, and I need to groom them. And that means doing without them sometimes. I mean, like I said, you send a person away to a military school and you don't have them. So, sorry, as a military leader, if you got 10 to 20% of your force doing professional development and not helping you out in some NTC or something.
And the Army pushes these guys to perform at 100%, keeps them super stressed out at this high level, and then cuts them loose for a 4-day weekend and is beside themselves when 8 of them get DUIs. How could this happen?
Or into a bar fight with
how could this possibly
the Ranger model. The Ranger model.
I don't understand.
let me keep you like fucking on a chain and abused, and then like act surprised.
Right.
The first time you're given some freedom, you go out and like show your ass.
I remember when that really kind of came into like.
I for one have no idea what he means by
but I remember when that came into the environment. Where it was no alcohol-related incidents. If you're drinking, it doesn't matter if you started the fight. It doesn't matter if you got jumped. It doesn't matter anything. If you're out of battalion, you're released for standards. Like it became, and again, like you say, you go out, you train hard, you do this, and it's probably like this in the conventional armory too. But in Ranger Battalion, the platoon leader shows up. It's sort of his make or break moment, right, for his whole career.
Sure.
A young officer, and like you say, they're going to drive their platoon. They're there for 18 months, whatever. They're going to drive their platoon relentlessly, to check those boxes, and they're going to check out and go move on, and the next officer is going to come in and do the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's what I saw my whole career, and like I took note of it. I mean, that was part of learning leadership, was paying attention to what I guess I thought was negative, when I was working for people, and what I thought was kind of corrosive to performance and cohesion was just everybody kind of wants to come in and like ride your guys as hard as they can and put them away wet for 12 to 24 months and then move on. But the next guy's going to do the same thing, and it's going to go over and over again, and then pretty soon, like, you got a bunch of broken dudes, man, and or broken people. It's like that's not helping anybody. So you, like, as a leader, as a good leader, you kind of got to be aware that, look, man, it's not just all about making my OER bullets. It's about, I need to put value back into the force. I need, like, again, I need to think of these people as
invest in the human being.
Yeah.
Alejandro here says $100 to sing the ballad. Will a cup full of grog be involved after you finish? Maybe. What are you guys drinking? No scotch? I'm drinking Peroni. Dave is drinking Lefroy. What are you drinking there, Mike?
I'm drinking Guinness.
Right on.
Someone told me it was a power move to drink it out of the can, so I figured I'd flex.
Right on. Blue collar move. Adam says, I hope people appreciate how real this is. Such gold in here. Phenomenal interview, Mike. Keep up the great stuff, fellas. Thank you.
Can we get David about Colonel Mike Cavanaugh?
Yes, we did.
Sorry about that.
So, guys, I think we're going to kind of wrap up here. I'd like to, Mike, if I can keep you for the bonus segment to talk about Afghanistan a little bit, your time there. This has been awesome, man. And, super, you should probably write, like, some sort of memoir, or this should be a Netflix movie or something, Mike. This is a really interesting story you had to tell tonight.
I started putting some vignettes on paper several years ago just because I fucking forget shit all the time. I forget entire chains of events, and then someone will bring something up and I'll be like, oh yeah. Wow, we did, like all this shit happened, and it's like I probably ought to write that stuff down, so I put it down, man. I got multiple head injuries and I drank a lot, so I tend to forget shit.
All right, guys, so I hope you join us for the bonus segment. Everyone, we'll see you next Friday with Jeff Miller and Nick Brockhausen. Take care. Thank you, Mike. Really